Chapter 2354 Savage. Chapter 2354 Savage. Why would there be trash from a super low-level dimension here? Su Xing was the first to ask. Firstly, he was indeed curious, and secondly, he was deliberately trying to strike up a conversation with Zhi Kong. This question voiced the confusion in everyone's hearts, and they all turned to look towards Zhi Kong. Oh, when Exalted Master personally arrived in the super low-level dimension of the Celestial Realm, he killed innumerable elites, and at the same time also captured some. They are the descendants of those human elites, Zhi Kong said calmly. It was clear that she had since lost her curiosity. Why is it necessary to keep these pieces of trash alive? Shui Ge asked as he bared his mouth, revealing a bloodthirsty expression of cruelty. That trash was only worthy of being his food. Smiling, Zhi Kong replied, Master wishes to study these humans. Who knows, he may be able to find some way for us to be unafraid of the restrictions placed on us by the heaven and earth of that realm. What, Lord Desolate Eternity actually has such a great ability? Everyone was stunned. Aside from Ling Han and the others, they all looked excited. The foreign realm was stronger than the celestial realm, yet had not been able to conquer the celestial realm even after so many years because, firstly, the regulations of the two realms were different, so they could not fight too long, and secondly, after they entered into the celestial realm, they would be restricted by the power of heaven and earth of the celestial realm. If this second problem could be resolved, the elites of the foreign realm would be able to penetrate deeply, and use their advantage in numbers and quality to eliminate a great majority of the beings of the celestial realm. In this manner, the heaven and earth of the celestial realm would also be severely wounded, and the heaven and earth of the foreign realm would be able to easily devour the celestial realm. This was a realm war. To eliminate a realm, it was necessary to eliminate all the living beings of this realm. Otherwise, even if several dozen or over 100 Heavenly Venerates joined forces, they could not possibly be a match for the heaven and earth itself. It was unknown if there were even stronger Heavenly Venerates in high-level dimensions that could truly defeat the heaven and earth. Yet Ling Han's heart throbbed wildly. The foreign realm was really working tirelessly to invade the celestial realm. If the Heavenly Venerate Desolate Eternity really succeeded, there would definitely be no worse news for the celestial realm than this. Thankfully, now that the two-realm passageway was hindered, and the storm of energy raged like an ocean, even an 18th Lotus Ancestral King could not pass through. Even if a Heavenly Venerate barged through forcefully, they would be severely wounded, and once they were further targeted by the heaven and earth, they would probably be forcefully killed. Hence, there was at least several tens of billions of years that the celestial realm was still safe. Haha, that super low-level dimension thinks that just because the storm of energy is there as a barrier, we would have to wait several tens of billions of years, right? Su Xing smirked coldly. There has long since been several Heavenly Venerates that have been dealing with that. At most in a billion years, we will definitely be able to sweep aside the storm of energy, and begin the war once more. Senior Sister Zhi Kong, how long is Lord Desolate Eternity away from success? Jing Zhongyue asked. I am not sure about that either. Zhi Kong shook her head. However, from the occasional words that Exalted Master has spoken, it is probably a matter of just a few dozen billion years or so. Everyone was excited. Compared with a realm war that would last for epochs, several dozen billion years was really just a blink of the eye. Ling Han's heart clenched. He had been too optimistic. He had not thought that the Heavenly Venerates of the foreign realm would be so proactive in the invasion. True, they, too, were being attacked by the Dark Inverse Realm. If they did not conquer the celestial realm as soon as possible, they themselves would be done for. The Heavenly Venerates of the celestial realm are also working together with us, speeding up the dispersal of the energy storm. Zhi Kong continued. This was a piece of incredibly shocking news. Ling Han, too, could not help but raise a brow, feeling an urge to curse. It was enough that the Heavenly Venerates of the celestial realm offered no resistance. They actually helped the foreign realm to undermine the celestial realm's forces. What was the meaning of this? The expressions of Hu Niu and the other women also shifted greatly, but Huai Jian and the others did not show any change in expression. It seemed as if this kind of news was very normal for them. It looked like the betrayal of the heavenly venerates of the celestial realm was no secret in the foreign realm at all. Otherwise, everyone would certainly be exclaiming and look surprised when they heard this kind of information. Presently, the expressions of Huai Jian and the others were clearly normal, and it was too normal at that. "Esteemed guests, please have tea." That human servant served aromatic tea to each of them, his demeanor respectful. Ling Han sighed internally. This person should have been brainwashed with the mentality of a slave since birth. To say nothing of merely serving tea now, even if he was commanded to go into the battlefield and kill his celestial realm companions, he would surely execute the command without any hesitation. "Senior Sister Zhi Shuang, do you have a lot of such servants here?" Shuige suddenly asked. "A great many." Zhi Shuang nodded. "Then I will not hold myself back," Shuige said, suddenly turning into his original form. With a flash, he had turned into a bloody streak, darting into the head of that human. That human did not even have the chance to groan. His legs directly weakened as he collapsed loudly onto the ground. The gap between their cultivation levels and strength was really too wide. Shio, with another flash, Shuige leaped out of the forehead of that human once more, returning to his human form. He licked his lips and said, "Though the celestial realm is backwards, the taste of the beings that the realm nurtures isn't too bad. Furthermore, we can gain a sliver of the regulations of the heaven and earth by devouring their souls and brain juice. If the amount is sufficient, and quality is good enough, we will have a chance to cultivate the regulations of that heaven and earth." His sudden burst into murder was too fast, and even Ling Han had not managed to stop him in time. He had really not imagined that Shuige would actually be so deranged. In the eyes of the beings of the foreign realm, what difference was there between the beings of the celestial realm and normal food? I have absolutely no interest in consuming those filthy beings. We had best wait for Lord Desolate Eternity to create the secret technique, and enter into the celestial realm after cultivating it," Jing Zhongyue said. "By then, we should become ancestral kings too." "I do not mind myself," Su Xing said, revealing a sinister expression. Shuige was just about to speak, when ping, a punch landed heavily on his face. It just happened to land on his mouth, and he immediately spluttered out a mouthful of blood, half of his teeth broken. He looked at Ling Han in shock, his mouth wide and his eyes filled with doubt and fury. "Why had you hit me? Why? Did I trifle with you?" Ling Han withdrew his fist, and stated calmly, "I suddenly thought you looked very detestable, so I hit you." "What is it? Dissatisfied?" "Fuck, of course I am." Shuige almost roared, yet forcefully suppressed the urge. So what if he was dissatisfied? So what if he fought with all his might? Was there any chance he could defeat Ling Han? Ling Han was indeed unreasonable, but the most important thing in this world was strength. You could only make the rules if you were strong enough. "I will remember this," he said as he gritted his remaining teeth, gritting his teeth so tightly that there were cracks heard. Ling Han was completely unconcerned. Because he would not see anyone from the celestial realm after entering into the foreign realm, he had not witnessed any scenes of the residents of the foreign realm slaughtering beings of the celestial realm, so he had temporarily forgotten about the savage nature of the living creatures of the foreign realm. But in truth, this was the disdain, contempt, hatred, and thinking that beings of the celestial realm were only their toys and food that was rooted in their bloodlines. It would never change. In this moment, Ling Han really wanted to kill Shuige, but this kind of action would be too rash. He could not just look at the details, and forget about the bigger picture. Killing one Shuige would not be able to solve the problem for the celestial realm. After the death of this Shuige, the foreign realm still had 1,000 or 10,000 Shuige that could even be 10, or even 100 times more savage and crueler than Shuige. After he became a heavenly venerate, he would turn the entire foreign realm upside down. Huai Jian and the others were also very confused. This punch from Ling Han was really too inconceivable, and even Zhi Shuang felt surprised. Though the internal strife in the line of the Desolate Eternity was very intense, this kind of irrational attack was still too bizarre. Chapter 2355 Zhi Kong. Chapter 2355 Zhi Kong. Have tea! Zhi Shuang said smilingly, lightly switching the topic from how Shuai had been hit. Firstly, that was the common practice of the line of Desolate Eternity. If it was a grudge between two people of equal cultivation level, it would be settled on their own, and elites were forbidden from interfering. Secondly, she was more biased towards Ling Han as well. This was a man that she looked very highly upon. Thus, Shuai could only wear a dark expression, and vent his anger on the tea. Gulping the tea down, his tea was soon finished, and he then demanded, "Where are the servants? Where is my tea?" Zhi Shuang clapped her hands, and a human immediately walked over, asking respectfully, "Miss Zhi Shuang, what is your command?" Though the body of his companion was just lying in front of him, he acted as if he had seen nothing. Ling Han sighed internally. These people had long since become numb. "Serve some tea," Zhi Shuang said. "And while you're at it, dispose of the corpse." "Yes, Miss Zhi Shuang." That human nodded respectfully, and took away the body first. After a while, he returned bearing tea. Shuai stretched out a hand, and was just about to drink from the teacup he had lifted when his face suffered another punch. Instantly, all the contents of his teacup was poured onto his face, and he jumped to his feet in fury. He shouted at Ling Han, "What exactly do you mean by this? I just don't like how you look. Is this reason sufficient?" Ling Han looked back at him, his eyes menacing. Shuai very much wanted to fly into battle, but when he recalled Ling Han's frightening battle prowess, he couldn't help but suppress his fury, and began to drink his tea grumpily. Zhi Shuang looked at Ling Han in shock. In her eyes, Ling Han was a very flexible person, and should be very subtle, only doing things after much consideration. Why was he suddenly targeting Shuai for no reason? She couldn't help but hesitate internally, and decided that she would not form an alliance with Ling Han for now. What if this guy was a great troublemaker? She would then be drawing fire to herself, which would be truly unwise. Thinking of this, she was no longer in the mood to entertain them, and thus had the servants bring them to rest at the guest courtyard to wait for the summons of the Heavenly Venerate Desolate Eternity. Ling Han roamed casually on the mountain. As long as he did not descend the mountain, or fly too far away from the mountain, there would be no fog surrounding him. In this place, he discovered a great many human slaves. The weakest was not even in the shattering void tier, and the strongest had reached 9th lotus. They were all cultivating the celestial technique of the foreign realm. They could not sense the power of heaven and earth of the celestial realm here, so it was natural that they were unable to cultivate regulations, and could only switch to the cultivation system of the foreign realm. Ling Han summoned a random person, and decided to make some queries. "Go Chi greets young master." This human was a middle-aged man in his 30s, a 5th lotus blooming on his forehead. He was of medium build, and quickly sprinted over to Ling Han, appearing very ingratiating. "Go Chi Wan?" Ling Han's eyes flickered again. Even the names given to them were so low-grade and base, which showed how pitiful the status of humans was here. "Don't you have any other names?" Ling Han asked. Go Chi looked blank. What other name? Was there any need to have two names? Though he was slightly confused, he still shook his head. "No. For people like you, how many in total are there here?" Ling Han asked. "Over 10,000 or so," Go Chi answered. Then, he immediately said very proudly, "I have passed through many levels of assessment, and finally became an A-grade slave. Hence, please believe me, young master. My service will definitely satisfy you." An involuntary grief rose up in Ling Han's heart. The man actually gained a feeling of superiority from being a slave. It was clear that this was brainwashing that had carried on for generations. "Do you know where your ancestors originate from?" Ling Han asked. "I do. It is a place filled with sin, and every person there deserves to die. Lord Desolate Eternity has very kindly taken our ancestors here, so we must be slaves for many generations to redeem ourselves," Go Chi said with much fear. Ling Han shook his head, and was in no mood to ask further. He waved his hand, dismissing the other party. Go Chi was slightly fearful, and also felt slightly blank. Ling Han had summoned him over just to ask so many strange questions. Was it because the former felt some displeasure about him? The pillar of support for his life was to be of service to the beings of the foreign realm. If this sacred mission was taken from him, his life would lose all meaning. Ling Han walked some way further, and saw a stone statue ahead of him. This was an insect race member that had the form of a mantis. Who knew how long it had been here as it was covered with dust? He couldn't help but cast a second look at it, a strange feeling rising up in his heart. Vaguely, he could feel that there was something off, but no matter what, he could not figure out what was off about it. This is a living creature with vitality index as high as 10,000 points. Wally's voice suddenly rang out in Ling Han's mind. Ordinary communication through divine sense could possibly be intercepted by elites, but Wally's communication definitely could not. According to him, he had used some kind of power that surpassed regulations to further code it, and it was impossible that anyone could intercept the message. Finally, Ling Han realized what was odd. As it turned out, this insect race statue was actually a living being, and was a supreme existence that had the battle prowess of a 15th Lotus ancestral king at that. He stopped walking, and bowed to pay his respects to the stone statue, saying, "Greetings, Senior." This status trembled, its eyes slowly opening. Instantly, a frightening aura surged out, pressure descending like a mountain, as if even divine metal could not bear up against this pressure. "Youth, your insight is not too bad." A voice rang out from the statue, filled with a metallic trait. Hi's figure trembled slightly, and dust fell off continuously, revealing his true self. He was completely golden, and actually did not have the disgusting vibe given off by the insect race. Merely 8th Lotus 11th leaf, and you can actually see through to my real self. Tisk. He appeared very curious. Just how exactly have you managed to do so? Naturally, it is because Senior is too captivating in bearing, which cannot be concealed at all. Ling Han babbled complete nonsense. Naturally, he could not possibly reveal Wally's existence. This insect race laughed loudly, and did not proceed to interrogate Ling Han further. Everyone had their own secrets, and he naturally would not disdain to compel a minor character of merely 8th Lotus. I am Zhi Kong, Master's 8th disciple. Unfortunately, I have followed Master for several epochs, yet has still not managed to become an 18th Lotus. He shook his head, seeming very disappointed. This is the place of seclusion for Master. I am cultivating here, borrowing a sliver of Master's Heavenly Venerable aura, and perhaps may be able to break through to 16th Lotus. Ling Han was surprised. Could it be that not all of Heavenly Venerate Desolate Eternity's disciples were monarch stars? As long as they were monarch stars, and did not make any wrong turns on their path of cultivation, they would definitely be able to become 18th Lotus ancestral kings in the future. Zhi Kong laughed loudly. Though there is no shortage of monarch stars among Master's disciples, not all of them are monarch stars. Many years ago, Master has attempted to boost people whose aptitude is the most ordinary to the height of the 18th Lotus ancestral king, and I had the fortune to be taken as Master's disciple. Initially, even becoming a 9th Lotus would have been difficult for me, but through Master's teachings, I have now actually become a 15th Lotus ancestral king. Unfortunately, I have still disappointed Exalted Master. Ling Han was internally stunned. The Heavenly Venerate Desolate Eternity truly had astonishing ways and frightening foes. First, he wanted to make it so that every single person of the foreign realm would no longer have to fear being weakened by the heaven and earth of the celestial realm, and now he wanted to turn a person with ordinary aptitude into an 18th Lotus ancestral king. If he were to succeed, the overall strength of the foreign realm would reach a frightening level. Thankfully, Zhi Kong was still a 15th Lotus after cultivating for who knew how many years, and this was the result even with the dedicated guidance of a Heavenly Venerate. It looked like it was not very possible that this goal would be achieved. Chapter 2356 16,000 points. Chapter 2356 16,000 points. I heard that Master is going to take quite a few new disciples this time round, Zhi Kong said. He looked at Ling Han, and broke into a smile. There is a strange pattern, or it may be a coincidence. Every 9th disciple that Master takes would be extraordinarily strong. My 9th junior brother was the first to advance to the 18th Lotus Ancestral King out of all the disciples. My 19th junior brother, despite joining later, has surpassed him. Not only has he become an 18th Lotus Ancestral King, his battle prowess is also world-shaking, one of the very best among Ancestral Kings. Though my 29th junior brother has only just advanced into the ranks of Ancestral Kings, so far, the prodigies that joined in the same period as he has are but at the 9th Lotus. And now, there is definitely one among you that can become the 39th disciple. I am slightly curious myself. There was a coincidence like that. Ling Han was internally unconcerned. Though there was indeed the saying of fortune in the world, he was not a person that belonged to this heaven and earth, so how could fortune possibly boost him? Making no mistakes was already a success. However, since Zhi Kong had said thus, Ling Han also responded with a smile, and said, I will keep senior brother Zhi Kong's words in mind, and try to get the 39th place. Zhi Kong nodded, and then continued, Master is in seclusion here, and forbids anyone from approaching. However, it is not because that would cause him any disturbance, but rather because his strength is really too great. A slight thought would be capable of destroying the heavens and eliminating the earth. The safety zone that Master has created ends after this line. Hence, I stand guard here, firstly to borrow Master's fortune, and secondly to prevent new junior sisters and junior brothers from accidentally barging into this area in a moment of carelessness. Ling Han nodded, and clasped his hands, saying, Thank you for the advice, senior brother. Yet he was internally curious. Since the Heavenly Venerable Tir had omnipotent power, what need was there to create a safety zone? Even if he was in seclusion, so what? If he desired this place to be safe, this place would become impenetrable. If he wanted this place to be dangerous, then this would be a danger zone that even an 18th Lotus Ancestral King would get a headache about. Something was wrong. Ling Han had a powerful feeling of crisis. He had to stop the Heavenly Venerate Desolate Eternity from coming up with a method to adapt to the power of heaven and earth of the celestial realm, and the real self of this Heavenly Venerate was constantly in seclusion, studying this kind of method precisely. Ling Han had to cause some damage. There were two options. One was to take all the humans into the Black Tower, without any materials. How was the other party to continue his studies? Or the second one, which was to launch a sneak attack on this old geezer. The greatest taboo during seclusion was to be disturbed by others. But would merely 9th Lotus Tir's strength be capable of disturbing a Heavenly Venerate? No matter how he thought about it, it was delusional. He had best take the first option. Ling Han bid Zhi Kong farewell, and did not roam any further. Instead, he returned to his own place, waiting patiently. A few days later, a sliver of the Heavenly Venerate Desolate Eternity's divine sense descended. Wang, a feeling of unease and anxiety instantly rose up in everyone's heart. It was as if even their soul was trembling. Ling Han understood internally. This was because Heavenly Venerable Tir was an existence that surpassed regulations, yet what everyone was cultivating was precisely regulations. Thus, when they encountered a Heavenly Venerate, they would be just like mice that had come upon a cat. Both sides were not even on the same level at all. Ling Han was unafraid because he, too, had once been an overlord of a realm, though it was not all that authentic, but at least he had still been a pseudo-Heavenly Venerable Tir, and was no weaker in level. In fact, from a certain aspect, he had been the strongest of a small realm, while Heavenly Venerates were only several of the stronger existences in a large realm. In that aspect, he was more impressive. A thought suddenly rose up in his mind. Why was it that a Heavenly Venerate could not produce another Heavenly Venerate from their teachings? That was right. Being at the side of this Heavenly Venerable Tir, learning, and studying the aura of the Heavenly Venerate would indeed help one to become a Heavenly Venerate, but if it took too long, the majesty of this Heavenly Venerate would be subconsciously carved into their bones, and they would continue living in the former's shadow. Since that was the case, how were they then supposed to become Heavenly Venerates? Hence, one could be close with a Heavenly Venerate, but the time period definitely could not be too long. "Greetings, Master!" "Greetings, Lord Desolate Eternity!" Everyone bowed down. Though Ling Han was internally displeased, he still had to pretend for now, and thus bowed down with the three women following suit. The divine sense of the Heavenly Venerate Desolate Eternity took the form of a demon race member. Because only holy beasts and insect race needed to take human form, the image that this sliver of divine sense took should be the original appearance of the Heavenly Venerate Desolate Eternity. He was of very short build. In fact, his body was slightly stooped, with a single horn as black as ink growing from his head. Meanwhile, his skin was no different from any other demon race members, being as bright red as blood. Merely appearance-wise, he really did not have the slightest outstanding trait. Celestial kings would be entwined by various colored clouds, but he was very ordinary, so average that others would forget him quickly after the first look. But when his eyes swept over, Ling Han felt that his thought processes actually stopped, as if time itself was frozen. When he regained his wits, it was unknown how much time had already passed. Perhaps it had only been an instant, or it might have been millions and millions of years. In fact, Ling Han felt that even small Tower had awoken, exuding a strong feeling of wariness. The precious tool of a Heavenly Venerate was actually afraid. "I made some miscalculations. The vitality index of the original self of this living creature should be close to 16,000 points. The heaven-deceiving technique that I modified cannot deceive his original self, but thankfully this is just a wave created by a sliver of his divine sense." Wally's voice rang out. Fuck! Ling Han almost wanted to strangle this guy. The latter's slight mistake would cause him to lose his life. The activation of the Black Tower would need time, and he would also need time to complete a thought, and this bit of time was enough for a Heavenly Venerate to kill him hundreds of millions of times over. Who would have thought? Wally would actually have a moment when he could not be depended on. Hold on, the vitality index of a Heavenly Venerate was 15,000 points, so what the heck did close to 16,000 mean? Ling Han asked Wally through encrypted divine sense about this. 15,000 is Heavenly Venerable tier, so what is 16,000? Great Heavenly Venerate? Naturally Heavenly Venerate as well, just an even stronger Heavenly Venerate. Wally replied unhurriedly. Additionally, you are a pure living being, so the concealment of your spiritual fluctuation cannot compare to mine. Thus it is best you do not speak to me, or you will increase the chances of being discovered, which will be as high as 57%. As expected, when his words fell, the eyes of the Heavenly Venerate Desolate Eternity turned over to him, and roamed over Ling Han's face, seeming to be quite intrigued before then sliding past. You all, the Heavenly Venerate Desolate Eternity's eyes paused on the faces of Ling Han, Huaijian, Shuige, Jing Zhongyue, and Su Xing, respectively, represent the most outstanding younger generation in the latest epoch of our realm. Today, I shall take you as disciples, and hope that you can advance further, reaching a height similar to mine. Thank you for your training, Master! The five of them answered simultaneously. The Empress, Hunyo, and Bewitching Maiden Ro were not qualified to become the disciples of the Heavenly Venerate Desolate Eternity. They were only here as Ling Han's family. The Desolate Eternity Heavenly Venerate nodded. I do not like unnecessarily elaborate mannerisms. You all may just kowtow, and you will all be my disciples in the future. Disciples pay respects to Lord Master. Ling Han and the others all knelt down and bowed. Only Ling Han was muttering internally when he did so. Old geezer, I will bow down to you today, but you will have to return the favor in the future. The Heavenly Venerate Desolate Eternity smiled, and looked again at their five faces before saying, Hua Jian is the first that I have set my eyes on, so he is naturally your senior brother, and becomes my 37th disciple. Yes. Hua Jian nodded respectfully. Shuige, you are the 38th disciple. Yes. Jing Zhongyue, you are the 39th disciple. Understood. Su Xing, you are the 40th disciple. Yes. Ba. Heavenly Venerate Desolate Eternity looked towards Ling Han. You originally should have been 38th, but you have come together with Huaijian. I did not deliberately manifest myself, so you will be counted as the youngest. Chapter 2357 Heavenly Venerate Desolate Eternities Tao. Chapter 2357 Heavenly Venerate Desolate Eternities Tao. Understood. Ling Han nodded respectfully as well. He only wanted to feel the aura of a Heavenly Venerate, and was not concerned about whether he could be the 38th disciple, or what his rank was among the other disciples. This is the knowledge that has come from my recent studies. I bestow it on you all. The Heavenly Venerate Desolate Eternity flicked his fingers, and shio, 5 streaks of light darted from his hands, sinking respectively into the foreheads of Ling Han and the others. The 5 of them hurriedly bowed in gratitude once more, but the Heavenly Venerate Desolate Eternity only waved a hand, and this sliver of divine sense instantly disappeared. Ling Han checked himself, and discovered a sphere of light had appeared in his mind. With a light touch, millions of regulations instantly flowed out, as if the heaven and earth itself had manifested and taken form. If he used this to cultivate, it would mean half the work with twice the results. Unfortunately, this was not effective for Ling Han, because he had the Origin Magic Cube, which was even more helpful for his cultivation. However, this was still a treasure. Why? Because this contained the power of heaven and earth that the Heavenly Venerate Desolate Eternity had cultivated. The reason why a Heavenly Venerable Tir was so strong was because he had leaped out of the range of regulations, and touched the essence of heaven and earth, becoming capable of directly using the power of heaven and earth. And just now, when the Heavenly Venerate Desolate Eternity bestowed it on the 5 of them, it was inevitable that he would also be gifting a bit of his own power to them. Though it was pitifully little, in essence, there was no difference. The others would be completely unable to detect this kind of power. Even an 18th Lotus Ancestral King could only detect it with great difficulty. Only a pseudo-Heavenly Venerate who had touched the power of heaven and earth before, and was close to comprehending the essence of the heaven and earth, was capable of understanding it. Coincidentally, Ling Han was one such existence. He had once been a pseudo-Heavenly Venerate, and even if his present strength and cultivation level had fallen from that level, his sensitivity for the power of heaven and earth was still there. Otherwise, he could not possibly have been able to extract void particle energy. This is the Heavenly Venerate Desolate Eternity's Tao, Ling Han thought. Know yourself and know your enemy, and you will never be defeated. Now that he had understood the Heavenly Venerate Desolate Eternity's Tao in advance, should the 2 of them clash in the future, he would be able to grab the key moment first on the precondition that he himself had become a Heavenly Venerate as well. Ha! Ling Han showed a hint of surprise, and was even stunned to the extreme. In the Heavenly Venerate Desolate Eternity's power, he discovered several slivers of aura that belonged to the celestial realm. How is this possible? The Heavenly Venerate Desolate Eternity was an elite of the foreign realm, so how could he possibly extract the essence power of the celestial realm? If it was said that the Heavenly Venerate Desolate Eternity was actually an elite that originated from the celestial realm, there was clearly the aura of the heaven and earth of the foreign realm within his power, and was clearly dominant in his power at that. The old geezer was presently studying how to remove the restrictions of the heaven and earth of the celestial realm. Was he already close to succeeding? No, not being repressed by the heaven and earth was one thing, but possessing the power of another realm was another. Even the Dark Inverse realm had only sent Wally and another super elite into this realm to steal the power of heaven and earth of the foreign realm after absorbing all the knowledge of the high-level dimension. Ling Han was extremely curious. Could it be that the Heavenly Venerate Desolate Eternity had gone to cultivate in the celestial realm, and had thus managed to comprehend the essence power of the celestial realm? But the overall level of the celestial realm was lower, and a Heavenly Venerate would be immediately targeted the moment they appeared. Those like the Heavenly Venerates of the foreign realm would be further repressed. This was no joking matter. Otherwise, Ling Han did not believe that the karmic life Heavenly Venerable was so strong that he was capable of facing off against everyone on his own when the 9 great Heavenly Venerates attacked the celestial realm together. It had to be that the heaven and earth of the celestial realm had repressed them, and that was why the karmic life Heavenly Venerable had managed to perform a miracle. But precisely because of this, It was really too inconceivable that the Heavenly Venerate Desolate Eternity had managed to cultivate the power of heaven and earth of the celestial realm. Hold on, I have overlooked an important clue. Ling Han recalled the human slaves on Divine Desolate Mountain. They were beings that had originated from the celestial realm. Could they be related to the fact that the Heavenly Venerate Desolate Eternity had successfully comprehended this kind of power? These beings were too insignificant. Logically, there was no way that they could help a Heavenly Venerate comprehend the power of heaven and earth of another realm, but judging from the present situation, what deduction would be more logical than this? I will discuss it further with Wally later. Junior brothers and junior sister, congratulations, congratulations! The moment the Heavenly Venerate Desolate Eternity left, Zhi Kong and the others approached, offering congratulations to Ling Han and the others. The Heavenly Venerate Desolate Eternity had taken 36 disciples previously, and 11 of them had already completed their training and become independent. Some were at the two-realm battlefield, resisting the invasion of the Dark Inverse Realm, some were part of the invading troops against the Celestial Realm, and some were roaming the world, longing to take the final step and advance into the Heavenly Venerable Tier. There were only 25 disciples presently here, and there were as many as 19 among them that were still at the 9th lotus. They were all disciples that the Heavenly Venerate Desolate Eternity had taken in the last few billion years. Previously, the Heavenly Venerate Desolate Eternity had been very careful in taking disciples. He had not demanded that they all had high natural talent, but they all had their unique traits, unlike now, when he would only take disciples that had astonishingly high natural talent. These disciples all had their own secret schemes, especially those who were similarly at the 9th lotus. Everyone would soon become direct competitors. Though they were very cordial in their words, a storm was already brewing in secret. Those like Feng Hailuan and Si Huang Yun were glaring coldly and angrily at Ling Han, making no effort to conceal their animosity. Ling Han was in no mood to bother about them. After speaking a few casual words with them, he brought the 3 women back to his quarters, and then immediately related the doubts that he had. The 3 women were naturally extremely stunned by this, and offered their own deductions on the identity of the Heavenly Venerate Desolate Eternity. Could it be that he was a Heavenly Venerate that had betrayed the Celestial Realm? Ling Han asked Wally, and the latter directly replied that he did not have enough information, and was thus unable to make his deductions. Ling Han thought for a long time, and decided to first set this matter aside. Instead, he had to save the slaves here. Whether these people needed Ling Han to save them was not important, because they had already been completely brainwashed. Helping to free them from the fate of being slaves would instead gain their hatred, but if their existence would help the Heavenly Venerate Desolate Eternity to comprehend the power of heaven and earth of the Celestial Realm, then Ling Han was determined to take them away with him no matter what. He waited for a few days, and secretly grasped the situation on Divine Desolate Mountain. He knew where these human slaves resided, and then all he had to do was wait until that sliver of divine sense of the Heavenly Venerate Desolate Eternity left. If he did something in the presence of the divine sense of this Heavenly Venerate, he would definitely be caught red-handed. If you tried hard, you were bound to succeed eventually. 3 years later, the Heavenly Venerate Desolate Eternity received a message from another Heavenly Venerate, and left to attend a conference of Heavenly Venerates. Ling Han finally found his chance. In a single stroke, he had taken 1/3 of the human slaves, and when he was just about to take a few more in, he alerted an ancestral king, so he could only hide himself in the Black Tower and retreat. On the 2nd day, a great commotion instantly arose on Divine Desolate Mountain. Someone had actually barged into the place of enlightenment of a Heavenly Venerate, and kidnapped people. The main body of the Heavenly Venerate Desolate Eternity naturally could not be disturbed, and his sliver of divine sense had already left. Thus, this matter could only be delegated to the 2 ancestral kings. Originally, everything that happened here would be handled by Ancestral King Nawa. He had just broken through to 10th Lotus 700 million years ago, and was now already a 12th Lotus existence, his advancement being astonishingly rapid. Because he was a monarch tier, he would be able to reach the height of 13th Lotus or 14th Lotus with his own power even without the guidance of a Heavenly Venerate. But because this matter was about the pride of the line of the Desolate Eternity, he invited Zhi Kong to join him, and the two great ancestral kings investigated this matter together. This naturally produced zero results. The protective barrier around the mountain had not been damaged in the slightest, and they could not understand how this great thief had managed to barge in no matter how hard they thought. More importantly, why had this great thief kidnapped so many of their human slaves? Chapter 2358 Volcano. Chapter 2358 Volcano. Presently, surveillance was tight, so Ling Han naturally would not make any further movements, but rather chose to wait patiently. Not long afterwards, a rumor spread farther and farther on the mountain. This thieving criminal came from the line of the Desolate Eternity, and Ling Han and the other new disciples were being directly targeted as suspects. Why had nothing happened before, and something had come up the moment they came? Why Jian and the others all did not bother to refute? What a joke! What would they be doing with these lowly slaves? Even Schweiger scoffed. He only thought of these slaves as snacks for him. He would not droop so low to steal them away. This kind of rumor naturally had no basis, but why had it spread? Ling Han knew that it had to be those senior brothers and senior sisters that had come up with it, and their motive was to smear the names of Ling Han and the others. The line of the Desolate Eternity had always been competitive. With so many apprentice brothers and sisters, how were they supposed to contend for favor without using some tricks? Ling Han couldn't help but laugh secretly. These people's blind guess had actually hit the spot, but these people would definitely be unable to guess the real purpose that he had kidnapped these humans for. Because two ancestral kings were taking turns to stand guard, Ling Han did not find any chance to do anything, so he could only continue waiting. And as he waited, another 5 years passed. A guest suddenly arrived on Divine Desolate Mountain. He was an insect race member, but he had taken human form. His arms still maintained the form of the insect race, being covered with black scales, and he did not have hands, but rather two gigantic pincers that looked like weapons forged from divine metal. So it is junior brother Liao Kong under Lord Underworld. They came out to meet him, and while they were at it, introduced him to those who didn't know who he was. Underworld was the title of a Heavenly Venerate. Liao Kong greeted them with a nod. My exalted master has invited Lord Desolate Eternity over to discuss some matters, and just happened to discover a volcanic eruption, from which the source power of heaven and earth is flowing. It is greatly helpful for those Ninth Lotus senior brothers and senior sisters, as well as those junior brothers and junior sisters who are close to breaking through to the Ninth Lotus. He has thus commanded that I pay you a visit, and bring all of you there. Though the cultivation systems of the foreign realm and the celestial realm differed, certain aspects were similar. For example, progressing from the Immortal Palace tier to Ascending Origin tier in the celestial realm, or from the 8th Lotus to 9th Lotus in the foreign realm, was a qualitative change. In the celestial realm, origin power was converted into source power, whose quality was far higher than origin powers. Why was it said that even if celestial kings did not have the power of regulation, their battle prowess was still capable of matching severing mundane tier? That was because the overall level of source power was higher. Otherwise, no matter how great their power, it would still be like a strong man striking others with a paper stick, completely dealing no damage. In the foreign realm, this step similarly spelt a qualitative change in spiritual power. The breach from the Immortal Palace tier to Ascending Origin tier could be executed slowly, converting origin power bit by bit into source power. To speak in layman's terms, that was to compress. 10,000, 100 million bits of origin power could condense into 1 bit of source power. If the ratio differed, the quality and amount of source power would also be different. Naturally, the harder it was being compressed, the better. But this kind of conversion rate was extremely slow. If one could lend assistance from the power of heaven and earth, the conversion rate would be greatly boosted. Thus, one could break through to the Ascending Origin tier behind closed doors by themselves, or could also venture into a natural mystery realm. Furthermore, the process of condensing source power would still be very slow even after crossing over into the Ascending Origin tier, and it would be much faster with the help of a natural mystery realm. But this kind of natural mystery realm did not appear randomly, but rather required a surge of source power from the heaven and earth, and only then could it be used by cultivators. This kind of source power was actually the concentrate of regulations. For example, the 9 heavens flame, to be frank, was a manifestation of regulations of the heaven and earth, and did not have much connection to the power of heaven and earth itself. Hearing Liao Kong's words, all those who were at the 8th lotus and 9th lotus were all extremely overjoyed. The 8th lotuses here had all reached the peak stage, and were about to step into the 9th lotus. They were just in need of the source power of heaven and earth to temper themselves. Then, let's set out immediately, Zhi Kong and the others all said, seeming to be in a great rush. That was because the surging of source power from the heaven and earth had a time limit. It was unknown how many more years they would have to wait once they missed it. Moreover, the volcanic eruption this time around having such great amounts of source power surging out did not mean that it would once again erupt many years later. This would all depend on luck. All right. Liao Kong nodded. Actually, he, too, wanted to go there as soon as possible. Everyone immediately set out. Liao Kong had come as commanded by a Heavenly Venerate, so he naturally had made some preparations. With a wave of his hand, a great river of the underworld appeared out of thin air, with only a single tiny raft floating in the river. Please board the ship, Liao Kong said, and was the first to leap onto the raft. Everyone leaped over one after another. Liao Kong steered the ship, and the small raft instantly rode the winds and broke waves, being astonishingly fast. Moreover, the river was also continuously extending forwards. Merely a day later, the great river had reached its end, and the small raft stopped. They had already arrived at the foot of a great mountain, and the great mountain was presently gushing with lava. Black flames burned the skies, and it was as if the skies were about to melt. "This is Golden Cloud's mountain!" Zhi Kong exclaimed in shock. "Even if we came via transference portal, we would need as long as 3 years' time. Yet now, in just a single day, they had arrived at their destination." Everyone all looked enviously at Liao Kong's hands. He had already stowed away that great river and tiny raft. "This is the treasure that Master has lent to me, and I will be returning it to Exalted Master later," Liao Kong said smilingly. As expected, only a Heavenly Venerate would have such heaven-defying ways. This was really too shocking. Everyone, the 2 lords Heavenly Venerates treat all the citizens of our realm equally. Thus, they did not consider this natural mystery realm as their private property. Hence, when we ascend the mountain, we will still encounter other cultivators, Liao Kong said seriously. To obtain the source power of heaven and earth, it is inevitable that there will be competition. The 2 lords Heavenly Venerates have expressed that they would definitely not interfere, and we would have to depend on ourselves for everything. Huai Jian and the others all showed hints of pride in their expressions. Which of them was not a prodigy? Especially those disciples that had joined later. They were all monarch stars at the very least, so how could they possibly fear competition? Even if they encountered a 9th Lotus 3rd Leaf elite, and were no match for the other party, they could still flee calmly. It would not progress to the point where they would lose their lives. Let's set out then. Everyone was filled with anticipation. Though they had come to this kind of mystery realm, it was not definite whether they would be able to attain the mystical power of heaven and earth or not. All that would have to depend on their individual luck. Practically everyone acted alone. Resources were limited, so it was natural that they would all be going it alone. Meanwhile, Ling Han advanced up the mountain together with Hu Niu and the other women. Little Terror was still roughly the size of a puppy, and with bewitching Maiden Ro holding it in her arms, it looked completely like an adorable pet. The little guy was forced into submission under Ling Han's authority. This was a mountainous area that extended endlessly into the distance. That volcano that was presently bursting with lava was the main peak. It was rumored that there was supreme pressure there, and only an ancestral king would be able to reach the peak. Hence, there was no need to even think about climbing to the summit. The source power of heaven and earth was surging out together with the lava. If one could reach the summit, and occupy the crater of the volcano, it would be much too easy to obtain the source power of heaven and earth. Heavenly Venerates naturally could do so, but did not choose to, naturally because they could not be bothered. If the disciples of a Heavenly Venerate did not even have this kind of competitive awareness, they had best scram earlier. The eruptions of the volcano had no pattern to them. At times, the lava would spurt towards the east, at other times, it would be directed north. Sometimes, it would gush very near, and at others, it would be spraying very far. Hence, it was needless to think of standing guard somewhere and wait. Shio, as the volcano erupted, a massive molten rock streaked through the skies, and then fell towards Linghan and the others. Pun! This was a gigantic rock, and was still burning with fiery flames, but one could still see that this was a black rock filled with primal chaos. Fuck, a chaos source rock! Chapter 2359 Area of Madness. Chapter 2359 Area of Madness. Linghan was stunned. The so-called source power of heaven and earth was actually chaos source rock. No wonder Small Tower had previously said that the chaos source rock could help it recover slightly. This was a treasure close to Celestial King tier. No, Celestial Kings were also using source power, which was only a level higher than regulations. This was a Celestial King tier resource, and it could be said that Celestial Kings were using Chaos Source Rocks 1. However, though this Chaos Source Rock in front of him was massive, the essence contained within was actually not much. To speak more crudely, it contained too many impurities. Even a little bit is still good. Linghan swept out with a palm strike, wanting to extinguish the flames on the rock, yet shockingly discovered that the flames merely flickered when his palm landed. He actually had not managed to extinguish the flames. Interesting, he commented, smiling. Let Nyo do it! Hunyo was full of zest, and also waved out her small hand to extinguish the fire, but the flames merely waved, and were completely unmoved. Who? The little girl then simply chose to puff up her cheeks and blow out, which caused Linghan, the Empress, and bewitching maiden Ro to break into laughter. Even little Terror was baring its teeth, releasing a wolf-like howl. You are no wolf, so why are you howling like one? Hunyo placed her hands on her hips, fuming. Little Terror expressed that it was very innocent. From birth, that was the way it called out. Linghan channeled the power of regulation, and pressed his hand down once more on the burning rock. An endless chill spread out, turning into layers of ice which wrapped around the rock. The flames were immediately controlled, but they were still flickering stubbornly, seeming like they were unwilling to go out no matter what. Linghan increased the intensity of the power of regulation, and the flames were further repressed, but still were not extinguished. The source power of heaven and earth is indeed extraordinary. Linghan nodded internally. No wonder this would be effective for the recovery of the Black Tower. It was indeed extraordinary. However, Small Tower has also said before that a Chaos Source Rock could only help it recover by a 10,000th, which was still endlessly far from the Heavenly Venerable tier. The source power of heaven and earth should be set between regulations and the essence of a Genesis world, the transition between the Celestial King tier and Heavenly Venerable tier. Linghan continuously used his power to suppress it. Various regulations appeared one after another, and only then did he finally suppress the flames. He casually tossed the Chaos Source Rock over to Bewitching Maiden Ro and said, For you. Me? Bewitching Maiden Ro asked in surprise as she pointed at herself, appearing like she could not fathom this at all. At present, everyone needed Chaos Source Rocks, and logically speaking, the priority of Linghan, Hunyo, and the Empress should be higher than her. Linghan smiled. You have to quickly complete the tempering of the Immortal Palace tier, and we still have some slight room for improvement, so you can use it first. Both the Empress and Hunyo nodded. They were not petty people, what more when Linghan's words were reasonable. Bewitching Maiden Ro was touched. Though Linghan had spoken the truth, Chaos Source Rocks would not expire even if they were not used, so how could it be that it could not be stored inside the Black Tower? She did not say anything further, and merely put away the Chaos Source Rock. Linghan nodded and said, Your strength is indeed a weakness among us. You will only be a burden unless you advance into the ascending origin tier. When these words fell, bewitching Maiden Row was instantly outraged. Does this guy really not know how to speak sweet words in the slightest? Will you die if you comfort me a bit? I am going into the Black Tower to cultivate, she snapped. If she had enough strength, she would definitely beat Ling Han up. Ling Han laughed, and drew bewitching Maiden Row into the Black Tower. They continued onwards. The volcano was constantly erupting, and because the direction of lava flow was indefinite, there was no way to trace its whereabouts. Hence, they could only collect the chaos source rocks that had been scattered in the area. This time, their luck was not that good, as they had not found any even after half a day. Initially, the mountain was green and grassy, but with the volcano wreaking havoc, there were holes and depressions everywhere. Some places were even filled with fiery flames, but ordinary fire could not last for too long either. The plants here all had astonishing vitality, and the flames soon went out by themselves. Do not underestimate this place. Ling Han flipped through the information that Liao Kong had given them before. It contained a detailed introduction of Golden Clouds Mountain. The outer circle here was very safe, but when one entered into the inner circle, it would become dangerous. That was because Golden Clouds Mountain by itself was already very amazing, and had a strange effect on living beings. If one stayed for a long time here, his cultivation level would advance astonishingly quickly, but the side effect would be that his spiritual state would become extremely violent, and only the primitive instincts of slaughter would be left in the end. The native wild beasts here were all violent killing machines, and some cultivators who risked coming here tried to quickly grow, yet they were all swallowed by their own greed, and ultimately also became wild beasts in human form. Though the eruptions of the volcano had no pattern, the majority of substances erupted would be falling inside the inner circle. Hence, if they wanted to increase their harvest, they would have to enter deeply into Golden Clouds Mountain's premises. Let's climb the mountain, the Empress said. Hunyo's expression was filled with excitement. Climb the mountain to hunt us some food? Ling Han nodded. Though this mountain was very bizarre, being capable of influencing the spiritual state, they were merely planning to stay here for around 1 or 2 months. This could not possibly turn them into wild beasts. They climbed the mountain, and there were increasingly less people around them. This was because everyone knew that there were mad wild beasts which would battle to death even if they were outmatched on the mountain, and if they encountered powerful beasts. It was definite that death would be the only outcome. Begging to be spared was useless. These wild beasts, or even wild men, only had the sole thought of slaughter, and even the disciples and descendants of Heavenly Venerates were worthless in their eyes. It was not just them. Even the wild beasts, and wild men of the mountain were very interested in these chaos source rocks. As long as they were at the 9th lotus or had reached the peak stage of the 8th lotus, chaos source rocks would be beneficial for them, and desire for strength was their second instinct aside from desire to slaughter. Ling Han and the others soon encountered one such mad wild beast. It was a palm civet, but it was as long as 9 meters, with wings sprouting from its back. However, it was no longer snow-white or golden like holy beasts, but rather dark gray in color. Furthermore, it was battered and tattered, looking incredibly ugly. The moment this wild beast appeared, it pounced, releasing a mad barrage of bites, but in truth, it only had merely 8th Lotus 4th Leaf's battle prowess, and Ling Han defeated it just by stretching out a hand. Hunyo immediately took out the barbecue grill while banging a knife as she cheered. Meat! 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 Ling Han waved a hand. He was very interested in the reason why these wild beasts had gone mad. Theoretically, the regulation of darkness also had this effect, being capable of driving others into madness, but Ling Han had not sensed any strong regulation of darkness in this place. If it was said that this was the main reason for their madness, he would refuse to believe it. He examined closely, and discovered that there was a grayish layer contained in the head of this wild beast, but he was completely unable to discern what exactly this was. Shio, a streak of green light suddenly shot over. As it turned out, Wally had taken human form, and was presently scanning it with his eyes. A substance that has never been seen before, Wally soon declared. Aren't you afraid that you would be discovered by a Heavenly Venerate by suddenly appearing like this? Ling Han asked. They won't. Wally appeared very confident in himself. Firstly, I have activated my concealment skill, and secondly, those two beings with vitality index over 15,000 points are only a form of spiritual wave. The chance of me being discovered is 0. Ling Han knew that this guy spoke in probability and odds. Since he had appeared, it was definitely fine. Ling Han had only been joking. Even you don't know what this is? Ling Han asked. Chapter 2360 Mysterious Substance. Chapter 2360 Mysterious Substance. According to my deductions, this should be a substance that is inclined towards the spirit, Wally said. He continued to scan that substance with green light. This was the second time. Ling Han was surprised. There is actually something in this world that you don't know. That is natural. Wally was very humble. Who knows how many realms there are in the Genesis world? I have only just ventured to a high-level dimension, and every realm has its own unique traits, though a considerable number of heaven and earth would be similar. Ling Han shook the palm civet in his grip. Can this thing be eaten? Would they also go mad if they consumed it? As long as you don't touch this thing, it will be fine, Wally said, pointing at the gray substance. Ling Han cracked a grin. Then, let's eat! They started a fire and roasted the meat, eating this palm civet. For better or worse, it was still at the 8th lotus, so its flesh was delicious. Furthermore, it contained an abundance of energy, which would be slightly beneficial for their cultivation. Finally, Ling Han carefully removed that layer of gray substance, planning to take it into the Black Tower, yet he suddenly discovered that he could not enter into the Black Tower. It was not like that scroll that could not be stowed in the Black Tower, but rather he himself had also been refused entry. This thing is extremely dangerous. Small Tower's voice rang out. It would very possibly corrode my consciousness, and cause me to head towards destruction. What? Only now did Ling Han get a true shock. What was the Black Tower? A precious tool of a Heavenly Venerate. But Small Tower was actually wary of this gray thing as well, and was unwilling to take it in, which would be equivalent to taking poison. But what poison could kill the precious tool of a Heavenly Venerate? Clearly, Ling Han had underestimated how frightening this substance could be. What exactly is this thing? Even Wally doesn't know, and even Small Tower is afraid of it. Ling Han mumbled. The whole Golden Clouds mountain should be filled with this kind of substance, but even ordinary cultivators would not be affected as long as they did not get in contact with it for a long time. Why was this the case? The level of quality is too high, but because there is not enough quantity, the influence has decreased? He guessed. Right when Ling Han was pondering, he discovered that the gray substance was actually dispersing, and soon vanished completely. It cannot stay for long outside of a living creature, but I can feel that it has not truly vanished, but has rather been reassimilated into this place. Ling Han raised his head to look at the erupting volcano. What exactly is this place? Whatever place this was, since they were already here, they should naturally search high and low for Chaos Source rocks. Small Tower had previously set its eye on them, so they were clearly extremely valuable. They roamed around on the mountain, and gradually went deeper and deeper. This was a very silent place, and even stepping on a leaf could produce a very loud sound. Sha, 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 they walked onwards, yet suddenly stopped. Only a while later, light appeared ahead of them. This was a man of the angel race. It was Feng Hailuan. Feng Hailuan clearly had not expected he would encounter Ling Han here. Killing intent flashed across his face, but he immediately hid it. Releasing a humph, he strode off. Killing intent flashed across Ling Han's face as well. If it were not for the fact that he knew that the divine sense of two Heavenly Venerates were here, and could sweep over at any time, he would definitely chase after and kill this guy. After witnessing Shuiji's cruelty, Ling Han knew they were all the same, whether they were demon race, angel race, holy beasts, or insect race. He could not think that they were kind just because the angel race and holy beasts had not invaded the celestial realm. There will eventually be a chance, Ling Han thought. They continued walking on the mountain, and would occasionally encounter berserk wild beasts, wild men, insect race members, and so on. Whatever they encountered, the latter was incredibly mad, and existed only for the purpose of slaughter. Ling Han and his group could deal with most enemies. Little Terror was also an incredibly powerful existence, and it could offer some resistance even against the 9th Lotus Third Leaf opponent. Could it be that Ascending Origin Tier has no pinnacle level? Ling Han asked Small Tower. Ascending Origin Tier is the transition into Celestial King Tier, to convert the origin power in one's body into source power. There are 3 minor levels: Small Accomplishment, Great Accomplishment, and Consummate, and every time you complete tempering and compression, it means that you have advanced to the next minor level. Small Tower offered a very detailed explanation this time. 3 times later, the origin power should be completely converted to source power, reaching a consummate state. If you are unable to reach the consummate level even after 3 times, you will have to do it again. And if you consume some specific natural treasures, you may be able to reach the consummate level in a single stroke. Realization dawned on Ling Han. In other words, the 3 minor levels of Ascending Origin Tier have no clear dividing line. In truth, it depends on the purity level of source power. By the time you reach 100%, that would be perfection. Hee hee. Small Tower laughed. This was its trademark mockery. Ling Han did not take it to heart. No wonder that no matter how strong an Ascending Origin Tier was, they could not possibly compare to a Celestial King Tier, because this cultivation level was only a transition, converting origin power into source power. In terms of height of regulations, they completely could not compare to Celestial Kings. Hence, they could not possibly reach or even surpass the level of Celestial Kings. However, as long as I advance to the Ascending Origin Tier, and use void particle energy to temper myself further, there is a chance that I can match Celestial King Tier. He couldn't help but be filled with anticipation. To battle or even kill Celestial Kings as an Ascending Origin Tier would have to be very shocking, right? Waha! Here is another rock! Hunyo suddenly called out loudly in excitement. Another burning rock had indeed appeared ahead of them, but it was close to being extinguished. Clearly, this fire would not continuously burn. Instead, there was still a limit. Ling Han extinguished the flames, and then stowed the rock into the Black Tower, in no rush to refine it. They continued traveling. They were not the only brave people in this deep mountainous area. There were other elites, such as the disciples from the Heavenly Venerate Yellow Springs line, but this Heavenly Venerate was different from the Heavenly Venerate Desolate Eternity. He did not have the habit of taking disciples widely, but rather only had a mere 3. Aside from Liao Kong, the others were actually the Heavenly Venerate Yellow Springs' first disciple, second disciple, or his grand disciples. Ling Han and his group battled with wild beasts, and battled with others as well. 2 months' time passed in the blink of an eye. They retreated from the mountainous area first to prevent their consciousness from being affected, as it had turned them bloodthirsty and hungering for slaughter. Even Small Tower was wary of that substance, so Ling Han no longer had the confidence that he could duck inside the Black Tower and hide. They arrived outside the mountainous area. While waiting for the grayish substance in their bodies to slowly disappear, they began cultivating with the Chaos Source rocks. This time, they had collected a total of 17 Chaos Source rocks, which differed in size. The largest was as big as a grindstone, but the smallest was only the size of a fist. However, size was not the only basis for judging the quality of a Chaos Source rock. The purity level of the source power within was another factor. Some rocks, while being large in size, did not contain much source power, and couldn't compare to even a fist-sized rock. The volcano has stopped erupting, someone suddenly exclaimed. Ling Han and the others raised their heads and looked upwards. Indeed, the volcano that had been constantly erupting had already stopped, no longer gushing flames and lava outwards. In their place, there were multiple black clouds that were incredibly dense and soaring skywards. This naturally led to another tsunami wave of entering into the mountainous area to contend for resources because there would no longer be any outpour of chaos source rocks, so every single one collected meant one less. Ling Han did not enter the mountain again. He checked himself, and there was actually not much of the grayish substance left. It was slightly influencing his emotions. Thankfully, after exiting the mountainous area, this kind of substance was also slowly decreasing, but if he climbed the mountain now, that would merely be courting death. Chapter 2361, Ascending Origin Tier. Chapter 2361, Ascending Origin Tier. A few months later, the contest on Golden Clouds Mountain finally came to an end. Everyone left. Zhi Kong had been responsible for taking them here, but definitely did not have the leisure and time to take them all back. In any case, it was just a few years' journey, so they could just travel at their own pace. Ling Han was in no rush to leave, but rather decided to stay for a while longer. He was extremely curious about this mountain. What exactly was that gray substance that it could drive living beings mad, and even the precious tool of a Heavenly Venerate would be wary of it? Was it also at the Heavenly Venerable Tier? The gray substance inside his body had already dispersed completely. Thus, he went into the mountainous area again, and only left when he felt that he was close to madness. Another 5 months later, Ling Han returned to normal. "You are playing with fire," Wally said. "Though this kind of mysterious substance would disperse, its effects on you are permanent. I can be certain that you will not be able to come back out again if you enter a few more times." Only now did Ling Han get a terrifying shock. He had not thought it would actually be so dangerous. He thought for a while, and decided that he should set this matter aside first. After he had advanced into the Celestial King tier, he would take another look at the summit. He was a curious person. Without getting to the bottom of this, he would not be able to rest easy. Ling Han, Hunyo, and the Empress embarked on a journey to return to Divine Desolate Mountain. On their way, the two women would occasionally cultivate with the Chaos Source rocks in their arms. They had both cultivated the greatest eternity everlasting physique. They themselves could turn into the flow of time, and there was no need at all for them to use the time cultivation chamber. But even if they were all monarch stars, and had already reached the peak stage of the Immortal Palace tier at that, converting and forming the first bit of source power was as difficult as ascending the heavens. It was the same even for Ling Han. This required accumulation of energy over an extended period of time, but just how long had they been at this level? Cultivating to the late stage would require accumulation of energy over a long time, especially when it was advancing to the next major tier. That could not be rushed at all. However, the three of them, including Bewitching Maiden Ro, had cultivated a time celestial physique, though Bewitching Maiden Ro's was slightly weaker. A year passed in the outside world, but they had already been cultivating for 100, even 1,000 years. 4 years later, they returned to Divine Desolate Mountain. It had taken a year longer than they had planned. That was because they made several stops on the way, which affected their speed. This time, because Ling Han had cultivated the secret technique of the Heavenly Venerate Desolate Eternity, he was no longer affected by the mist, and easily ascended the mountain. They had not thought that they were actually not the last batch to return. Shui Ge, Jing Zhongyue, Huai Jian, and the others were still on their way. Out of the 5 newly joined disciples, only Ling Han and Su Xing had returned. Ling Han was not concerned about the matters of others. He continued to cultivate while he looked for a chance to save another batch of humans. 9 days later, Shui Ge returned, but it caused a considerable commotion. Not only had he advanced into the 9th lotus, he had even reached the height of 2nd leaf at that. This was too shocking. How could it possibly be so fast? Wasn't cultivation level slowly tempered bit by bit? Only afterwards did Ling Han find out that Shui Ji's race enjoyed devouring the blood essence of living creatures, which they would usually store up in their bodies, and after breaking through to the 9th lotus, that blood essence would be dissolved, turning into waves of energy, and helping them to spike their cultivation levels. There was only a one-time opportunity. However, those with weaker natural talent would only be able to advance from the early stage of the ninth lotus first leaf to the middle stage at most, but Shuai-Ge was much more impressive. In a single stroke, he had charged up to second leaf, which was chillingly powerful. As expected of a supreme monarch star whose evolution index was close to or had even reached 11. This burst was really too terrifying. The first thing that Shuai-Ge did upon his return was to issue a challenge to Ling Han. He had held back for too long. Previously, Ling Han had punched him in the face for no rhyme or reason, yet no one had stood up for him, so he had repressed his anger. The fact that he was able to rush up to such a high cultivation level was because he really held too much resentment in his heart, which turned into powerful motivation for him. Otherwise, the explosion of blood essence was extremely painful, so he would have long since given up. Ling Han considered for a while, and agreed to a spar with him, setting the time for 10 days later. He had the confidence that he could advance into the ascending origin tier within 10 days' time. But even if he had reached small accomplishment level of the ascending origin tier, it would be very hard for him to match Shuai-Ge. Ascending origin tier aside, the latter was also a supreme monarch star, and his heaven-defying trait was not inferior to Ling Han in any way. However, Ling Han could still extract void particle energy. Once the upper limits to ascending origin tier was lifted, just what kind of height would he be able to reach? Consummate level of the ascending origin tier? Or even stronger? He was very expectant. Shuai-Ge had no disagreement about this either. 10 days' time was too short. Even with time acceleration effects, it would be no more than some 30 years. At most, Ling Han would be able to complete the breakthrough to ninth lotus, but compared with him, there was still a very wide gap. It should be known that the extreme burst after advancing into ninth lotus was the unique ability of their race. He was certain and confident that he would cripple Ling Han. 3 days later, Jing Zhongyue also returned. She had successfully advanced into ninth lotus, and had reached the middle stage ninth lotus first leaf at that. Though she could not compare to Shuai-Ge, it was still very shocking. Clearly, she had also encountered an amazing fated opportunity. Another 2 days later, Huaijian returned. His cultivation level had also improved greatly, reaching the late stage of the ninth lotus first leaf. Apparently, he had obtained a great fortune on Golden Clouds Mountain, and obtained a chaos source rock with an astonishing purity level. But neither of them could compare to Shuai-Ge. Previously, the 5 Supreme Monarch Star were practically on equal levels with one another, yet now there was a clear difference among them. Shuai-Ge had left them all behind in the dust, and the cultivation level of Ling Han, who had previously been strongest, was now the lowest, but no one dared to underestimate him. After all, this guy's body art was heaven-defyingly strong. And Ling Han was still burying himself in cultivation. He left his quarters, but was still on the divine Desolate mountain. This mountain was really too extensive and wide. An earth-shaking change was presently happening inside his body. He now knew why it was so difficult to condense source power. To use an analogy, origin power was in gaseous form, while source power was in liquid form. What he had to do was to liquefy origin power. In this process, the intensity of origin power would increase many times over, and a drop of source power would be able to explode with terrifying power. However, it was similarly extraordinarily difficult to compress origin power. In a moment of carelessness, he could explode himself into bits first. After thousands of failed attempts, Ling Han finally gained some certainty. Hong, long, origin power roared. It naturally was not willing to be compressed and erased, and was filled with resistance. Yet Ling Han ignored it. After strongly suppressing it, bit after bit of origin power was compressed together, reaching the extent of 100,000 bits. Ordinarily speaking, 10,000 bits of origin power was enough to be compressed into a drop of source power, but Ling Han was ambitious. If 100,000 bits of origin power were compressed together, he would be able to take a very big step in the ascending origin tier. He compressed it to his best efforts. Originally, origin power had no form, but being compressed under 100,000-fold, it was forcefully turned into mist. If he went another step further, the mist could condense into liquid. Ling Han roared internally. Wang, the mist condensed completely, and a single drop of liquid as formed quietly. Source power was condensed. The ascending origin tier. Ling Han's eyes suddenly snapped open, instantly releasing an astonishing light, as if his gaze could penetrate thorug the heaven and earth. Quang, thunderclouds gathered densely in the skies. The heavenly tribulation was here. Though he had only condensed his first drop of source power, taking this step meant a qualitative change, allowing him to advance into a new level. With a battle cry, he roared at the skies in fury, unafraid of the heavenly tribulation. Come on then! He took out that scroll that could not be opened, and channeled Wally's unique cultivation technique, extracting the power from within. Instantly, an even more frightening might of tribulation surged out. Ling Han stopped while he was ahead, and extracted a bit of power to temper himself. He stopped immediately. Once his ascending origin tier heavenly tribulation became a heavenly venerable tier heavenly tribulation, he would definitely be dead. Chapter 2362 Beaten until bursting. Chapter 2362 Beaten until bursting. Once Ling Han advanced into the ascending origin tier, his vitality index would spike, and unlock his room for evolution. Void particle energy could temper the body, and his physical power began to soar. The advancement of cultivation level should be very, very slow. It was the process of cooking soup over a slow fire. However, void particle energy was the essence energy of a Genesis world, far surpassing the height of regulations. If this was used to temper a ninth lotus being, the effects would naturally be spectacular. Ling Han's physical power began to soar. It had initially only been comparable to the early stage of consummate level of the ascending origin tier, yet it now leaped all the way to the middle stage, and the rate of advancement showed no signs of slowing down, either. Crack! 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 Thunderclouds spread out densely, bolts of lightning striking madly, turning into multiple giants of lightning as they launched a mad barrage on Ling Han. But for someone with Ling Han's physique, this was completely negligible. Under the tempering of void particle energy, Ling Han's indestructible heaven scroll also released a greater might, increasing the toughness of his physique. As Ling Han battled the heavenly tribulation fiercely, he roamed at the edge of the cliff, continuously absorbing void particle energy, and increasing his physical power and improving physique. A day later, the heavenly tribulation had passed, but the thunderclouds had still not dispersed. They were still occasionally building up and dissolving. This was because Ling Han was still using void particle energy to strengthen himself. The level of this energy was too high. Every once in a while, Ling Han's strength would increase a bit, and it was a practically visible rate. It was really too fast. When the deadline of 10 days arrived, only then did he stop with slight dissatisfaction. He was engrossed in the enjoyment of increasing his strength, and to suddenly stop now made him feel a slight dejection. My present body art should have surpassed the peak stage of consummate level of the ascending origin tier. Ling Han deduced internally. According to Wally's vitality index, I should be around 4,300 points or so, but there is still some distance from 5,000 points. If one's vitality index reached 5,000, they would be a celestial king. Ling Han returned, and did not go to his quarters, but rather headed directly to Sword Manifestation Peak. This was the highest and steepest mountain of divine Desolate mountains. From afar, it looked like a solitary sword that was stabbing into the clouds. Ling Han strode forwards, getting faster and faster. He did not use the slightest bit of power of regulation, but as he stepped out, he naturally surged with frightening power of regulation. Space seemed to have been forcefully compressed, and every step he took was equivalent to a boundless distance. Pung pung pung, he barged all the way over, without stopping at all. All the mountain rocks that blocked his way were crushed into dust. Ling Han released a battle cry, his voice ringing out like a heavy hammer, so resounding that bits of rocks were bouncing in the mountains before they, too, were shattered. He ascended Sword Manifestation Peak, and after traveling quickly for a long while, his steps finally slowed down as he strolled casually like a normal person. About an hour later, Ling Han arrived at the summit. There was a massive platform here. Initially, this had been a sharp summit, but it had been sliced off. It should be a deliberate move so it could be used for battle. A considerable number of people were already standing around the platform. The Empress and the other women, with little terror still curled up in bewitching maiden Rose arms, Huai Jian, Jing Zhongyue, Zhi Shuang, and the others. Practically all the disciples that had reached Ninth Lotus had arrived. Xue Ge was very anxious to get his revenge, so it was natural that he had arrived much earlier. He still maintained the image of a bald man of great build. His arms were crossed behind his back, and as the mountain breeze blew, the robes he wore rustled loudly. "You are quite late," he declared coldly. Ling Han grinned. "So eager to be beaten? Ha ha!" Xue Ge laughed drily, yet his laughter held no amusement. "Could it be that you still do not know my current cultivation level?" A lotus flower bloomed on his forehead, possessing 9 petals and 2 leaves that were as black as ink. "I am a 9th lotus second leaf, what about you?" Now that they had confirmed Xue Ji's cultivation level was truly 9th lotus second leaf, those like Feng Hailuan and Si Huang Yun all had grim expressions. In terms of cultivation level, they had already been surpassed by this young junior brother. Ling Han smiled calmly, and a lotus flower similarly appeared on his forehead. It also had 9 petals, but only held a single leaf, and this leaf was extremely blurry at that, almost unformed. Huai Jian and the others were naturally clear. Ling Han had indeed had some improvement, advancing into the 9th lotus, but only had the cultivation level of the early stage of the 9th lotus first leaf. In fact, it was the early stage of the early stage at that. The gap in cultivation level was clear to see. Previously, they were at the same starting line, but now Xue Ji's leading advantage was already incredibly apparent. "I can still beat you till you burst," Ling Han said. "What wild boasting!" Xue Ge smirked coldly. He knew that Ling Han's body art was amazing, with battle prowess reaching peak stage 9th lotus second leaf, or even 9th lotus third leaf. But Xue Ge? He was a supreme monarch star, with battle prowess directly soaring to the late stage, or even peak stage of the 9th lotus third leaf. "Bah, you have been too arrogant. I will definitely make you return what you owe me." Xiao, his figure charged out, as fast as lightning. Ling Han was calm, casually shooting out a punch. Pun! 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 He seemed to be either too fast nor too slow, yet every punch just happened to block Xue Ji's attacks, and he did not fall into the slightest bit of disadvantage. "What?" Everyone watched, their eyes wide with shock. How could this be? They were both supreme monarch stars. In that case, as long as one had an advantage in cultivation level, they would definitely be able to obtain victory in battle. Ling Han released a battle cry, lightning wrapping around his fists. This was something that he had come up with by fusing regulations and body art together, unleashing an even more terrifying destructive power. His movements were wide and obvious, the black lotus flower on his forehead swaying, as if it had come to life. This time, Ling Han had absolutely no interest in playing with Xue Ge move by move. The moment he started, it was his full battle prowess unleashed, suppressing Xue Ge completely. Everyone could not speak. Ling Han's strength was inconceivable to them. He had clearly just advanced into the 9th lotus, yet his battle prowess had reached the peak stage of the 9th lotus third leaf, and was in fact just that bit stronger, even. In that case, when he reached the 9th lotus third leaf, wouldn't he be able to clash even with an ancestral king? Xue Ge roared in fury. His expression was filled with disbelief. He had obtained such amazing improvement in a single stroke, yet was still no match for Ling Han. Furthermore, he had always been brimming with confidence, thinking that he could win easily and vent his fury. Who would have expected that reality was completely contrary to his expectations? He took his original form, a mere blood insect that was less than a foot long. Xiao, 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 it was like he was flying with how amazingly fast he bounced as he attempted to break through the limit of what Ling Han could trace visually with his movements. However, this was all completely wasted effort. By now, Ling Han could battle with his body art, his movements keeping on track with his wishes. There was no need for him to draw on regulations at all, so the speed of his attack would be just that bit faster than that of an opponent of the same cultivation level. Though it was just a slight bit, could a monarch star afford this minor gap? Pung! Ling Han's punch landed on the blood insect. Though the target's surface was small, the power of his fist was too overbearing, forcefully pummeling the blood insect and causing to throw up a mist of blood. Shui Ge was in so much pain that he released an incredibly agonizing wave through his divine sense. Ling Han did not quit while he was ahead. Who asked this guy to provoke him? If this was not divine Desolate Mountain, he would definitely deal a fatal blow and directly erase this damn insect. Enough, enough! Everyone hurriedly approached to mediate. Ling Han shot a few more punches, and only then did he stop. After stopping the fight, when everyone looked towards Ling Han, their gazes were completely different. This was a strong rival that they could not just circle around. With Ling Han there, a large portion of any future cultivation resources would definitely be going to him. Meanwhile, Xi Shuang was very regretful. If she had known, she would have formed an alliance with Ling Han. Now, if she spoke of this matter, it would be Ling Han who was stronger, and she would be the weaker party, so she would definitely have to make great sacrifices should they discuss conditions. Chapter 2363 UR? Chapter 2363 UR? Ling Han and the women returned, but the four of them very soon left their quarters together again. Hun Yo, the Empress, and bewitching maiden Ro were about to break through. In the remote wilderness of the mountains, the three women broke through respectively, while Ling Han continued to extract the void particle energy from within that scroll, pushing his physical power further upwards. A day later, the three women had completed their breakthrough one after another, and advanced into the ascending origin tier. They were now one step closer to the celestial king tier. They were in no rush to return. Ling Han had the three women continue attempting to absorb the energy inside the mysterious scroll, but they had not truly come into contact with the power of heaven and earth yet, and even with Wally's cultivation technique, they still did not have the slightest idea how to go about it. It was just like an artist that had never seen a tiger before. No matter how the tiger's appearance was described to him, there was no way he could draw a lifelike tiger. Ling Han could only sigh in pity, but it was fine. As long as the three women could become ninth heaven celestial kings, there was still a chance that they could absorb the essence energy of the Genesis world, thus stepping into the ranks of heavenly venerates. Both Hun Yo and the Empress would definitely become ninth heaven celestial kings, but it was not so certain for bewitching maiden Ro. However, Ling Han had no plans to turn her into their main contributor of battle prowess, either. In a flash, 13 years had already passed. Ling Han continued to use void particle energy to temper himself, already cultivating his body arts to the pinnacle of this cultivation level. According to Wally, his present vitality index was 4,424 points, already exceeding the third leaf of the ninth lotus by a great amount. And after waiting for so many years, the commotion that rose up from kidnapping the human slaves finally quieted down. The two ancestral kings returned once more to their usual routines, and did not continue to stand guard day after day, night after night. Ling Han found another chance. When that sliver of divine sense of the Heavenly Venerate Desolate Eternity left once more, which he even confirmed with Wally, he immediately executed his operations. This time, he was even stronger, so the speed at which he kidnapped them was naturally faster. After merely over an hour, he had taken all the humans into the Black Tower without alerting anyone. He returned casually. However, when he had traveled halfway, he suddenly discovered a white figure had appeared ahead of him. This was a person, but his features and even build could not be discerned at all. He was clearly just standing right there, so this was extremely bizarre. He should be an elite. Could it be that his previous actions had been witnessed by this person? Yet why had he waited here for Ling Han then? "Young man, you are very brave," this figure said. "I don't know what you are talking about." Ling Han's heart steadied. As long as Heavenly Venerate Desolate Eternity was not here, There was no one that could discover the black tower inside his body, so they naturally would not be able to catch him red-handed. A thief had to be caught in the act. Ling Han could completely push the blame off of himself, and deny everything. The white figure laughed loudly, and after laughing for a very long while, he finally said, "Young man, why have you kidnapped so many humans?" Ling Han's heart clenched, but he showed nothing in his expression as he replied, "I don't know what nonsense you are blabbering. I saw you take those humans into your spatial god tool with my very own eyes. Don't say that I saw wrong, that is impossible," the white figure said. Instantly, killing intent rose up in Ling Han's heart. In the first place, he was enemies with the foreign realm. Since this person had discovered his secret, the only option was to kill him. Xiao, Ling Han charged out, summoning the divine demon sword directly. He delivered a sword strike, but it was soundless and negligible, not releasing the slightest bit of light, but accompanied by his astonishing physical power, it could unleash a terrifying destructive power. The sword strike swept out, and Ling Han passed through the white figure. With how sharp the divine demon sword was, it actually did not cause the slightest bit of damage. You are indeed a very lucky brat, to actually have gained a celestial tool." The white figure appeared slightly surprised. Yet Ling Han was even more stunned. The other party said, "Celestial tool, and not ancestral weapon. What did this signify? Devouring metal, right?" The white figure laughed. "This kind of divine metal has a strong ability to grow, and divine metal is not its strongest. In the future, it could be forged into a heavenly venerable tool." What astonishing insight! Ling Han was shocked. Could it be that the precious tools of heavenly venerates were all forged from devouring metal? Otherwise, divine metal would be the final result. How would they find a material that was even stronger than divine metal? "No need to be nervous, no need to be nervous. If I bore malicious intentions towards you, how could I possibly be speaking with you here?" The white figure laughed, and actually turned around to comfort Ling Han. However, his next words caused Ling Han to break out in a cold sweat. "You come from the celestial realm, right?" Ling Han's first reaction was to activate the Black Tower, and then flee immediately with the three women, but something instinctively told him that he should not be so rash. Though this person's features were hidden, he possessed an intimidatingly strong aura. If this kind of being had wanted to target him, he would not have given him the chance to activate the Black Tower at all. He would have long since attacked. "Who are you, senior?" Ling Han did not admit nor deny it. The white figure laughed, and then sighed slowly as he said, "Like you, I, too, come from the celestial realm." Ling Han's heart trembled as he asked, "Could it be that senior is one of the earliest people to be brought into the foreign realm?" "Something like that," the white figure replied, his voice slightly bleak. Ling Han was shocked. Then the other had surely been in the foreign realm for a considerable number of epochs by now. He had to have had a very difficult time. "Tell me, brat, why have you come here?" the white figure asked. Ling Han's thoughts raced. There was definitely no way he could be so trusting. This person did not even show his face, and he was supposed to believe him? However, intuition told him that he should speak the truth. Firstly, the other had indeed discerned his true identity, so there already would not be much meaning if Ling Han planned to deceive him by saying he was a guest from the celestial realm. He considered for a moment, and only then related how he had been compelled by the heavenly venerates of the celestial realm, and thus could only flee to the foreign realm. After the white figure heard this, he sank into silence, and after a long while, he finally said, "Jiu Wu and sealed emotion, they are indeed still as cold and heartless as they had been. For the sake of their own transcendence, they have already abandoned everything." Ling Han's heart throbbed wildly. Hearing the tone that the white figure spoke in, he seemed to be on the same level as Jiu Wu Heavenly Venerate and sealed emotion Heavenly Venerable. A Heavenly Venerate of the celestial realm? He suddenly startled. This guy couldn't be the karmic life Heavenly Venerable, right? Everyone said that the karmic life Heavenly Venerable had faced off against 9 Heavenly Venerates on his own, resisting the 9 Heavenly Venerates of the foreign realm, and had even used his own body to crash into the connecting point of the two realms in his state of severe injury, granting peace to the celestial realm for a considerable number of epochs. However, what if this guy had not died, and had even been captured and brought here by the heavenly venerates of the foreign realm? No, if he was really the karmic life heavenly venerable, how could he stand here completely nonchalant like this? Dare I ask for senior's title? Ling Han asked cautiously, though he was filled with anticipation. A good many epochs ago, I did indeed have a title, and that was Wu Le. The white figure laughed, but Ling Han could discern the bitterness in his laughter. After he finished laughing, he paused, and repeated, Heavenly Venerate Wu Le! Pooh! Ling Han instantly spluttered. This white figure was actually a heavenly venerate, and a heavenly venerate of the celestial realm at that. This was completely illogical. Come, I will relate the exact details of the matter to you. I too need your help in this matter, or I would not have taken such a great risk to meet you, Heavenly Venerate Wu Le said. If you cannot accomplish this task, the celestial realm will really be done for. Chapter 2364 A Unique Power. Chapter 2364 A Unique Power. Fuck, so serious? Ling Han grimaced and said, Senior, this junior has just advanced to the ascending origin tier, and has very fragile shoulders still. I fear I cannot shoulder such heavy responsibility. Heavenly Venerate Wu Le shook his head. Young man, you still do not know the seriousness of this matter. He sighed, and continued. Over a dozen epochs ago, the foreign realm invaded, and Jiuwu, sealed in motion, green flames, and I worked together to battle the foreign realm heavenly venerates. But close to the end, those three selfish guys were actually persuaded by the beings of the foreign realm, and joined in alliance with the foreign realm for the sake of transcendence. What is transcendence? Ling Han was curious. Wu Le was speechless. What time was it now, and what this brat was concerned about was actually such trivial matters. However, looking at the curious expression on Ling Han's face, he knew that it was best for him to satisfy this guy's curiosity first. Otherwise, the latter would be completely absent-minded. Firstly, do you know how Heavenly Venerate Tier surpasses regulations? He asked instead. This question was huge, and probably only those rare few people in this entire world could actually answer this question. However, Ling Han was precisely one of them. Because he had once been the overlord of a realm, and had also obtained Wally's models and formulae, he knew how to extract the power of heaven and earth. By extracting the essence power of heaven and earth to nurture oneself, and turning it into the source of motivation instead of drawing on regulations, Ling Han answered. Heavenly Venerate Wu Le appeared slightly surprised. Though he had asked this question, he had not thought a mere ascending origin tier would be capable of answering. He faltered slightly, and only then continued. Though your understanding cannot be considered completely correct, it is not too far off, either. However, every realm would have a unique power. This is the precondition for the emergence of a realm, and for a heavenly venerate to ascend Tao, what they could grasp would definitely be this kind of unique power. Once they leave this realm, their power will slowly dry up, and they will leap down from the heavenly venerate tier. Ling Han was surprised. Wally had not mentioned this to him before. He nodded. This is just like how an ordinary person whose body would slowly weaken when he has lost the replenishment of energy through food. This is a very realistic analogy. Heavenly Venerate Wu Le nodded. However, Heavenly Venerate Tier is too strong. This process would be endlessly long, but no matter how long it is, as long as he still relies on this kind of power, it is inevitable. Heavenly Venerate Tier is like a tree which still needs to be rooted in its own realm, and they are closely linked. Ling Han was confused, and asked, Since that is the case, shouldn't Jiuwu Heavenly Venerate, and the others have a larger reason to protect the celestial realm? If the celestial realm was destroyed, the unique power of the celestial realm would disappear. How would the Jiuwu Heavenly Venerate, Sealed in Motion Heavenly Venerate, and Green Flames Heavenly Venerate continue to rule the world? Though Heavenly Venerate Tier is synonym for the strongest, there are actually still differences in strength and level among Heavenly Venerates. Heavenly Venerate Wu Le said slowly. Ling Han knew this because the vitality index of a Heavenly Venerate should be 15,000 points, but Heavenly Venerate Desolate Eternity was close to 16,000 points, which even Wally thought was terrifying. "Dare I ask, Senior, how many levels are there in Heavenly Venerate tier?" he asked. Heavenly Venerate Wula shook his head. "I don't know either." Ling Han couldn't help but feel speechless, thinking that this Heavenly Venerate was really quite humorous. "I have only ventured to the two realms of Celestial Realm and Foreign Realm, but as far as I know, there are a great many other realms, which contain countless powerful beings," Heavenly Venerate Wula said. "Next, these are all my deductions." Grasping the unique power of a realm should be the first step for a Heavenly Venerate. But aside from this kind of power, there are still other powers in the realm, and this is what makes up the foundations of the entire realm. That unique power can only be considered the unique trait of a realm. Further, grasping another basic power should be the second tier of a Heavenly Venerate. And once they took this second step, a Heavenly Venerate would be able to truly transcend, no longer trapped in their own realm, and could be powerful and lofty in any other realm as well. Ling Han nodded. Aside from that unique power, other powers would be universal. Then, it was natural that they would extract the power of heaven and earth of any realm they ventured to. There was no need to worry that they would dry up one day. The agreement that Jiawu and the others reached with the foreign realm is that when the celestial realm is devoured, the Heavenly Venerates will be able to extract the core power of the celestial realm together. Heavenly Venerate Wulu explained. There are only two methods to absorb this kind of power. Firstly, when the realm first comes into being, and everything is still in its beginning state, these powers would be exposed. However, when a realm first comes into being, there is no living being that can reach the height of Heavenly Venerate tier, so it naturally could not be done. Secondly, when a realm is destroyed. Ling Han's body shook, and he asked, "Those three Heavenly Venerates would destroy the entire celestial realm for the sake of their own transcendence?" Heavenly Venerate Wula sighed. "Previously it was because of this that we split ways. People who walk different paths cannot make plans together. It was not just him. There was also the karmic life Heavenly Venerate who came later. He had also met the incoming invasion of the foreign realm Heavenly Venerates on his own, and in the end had no choice but to fuse himself with Heavenly Tao, damaging the connecting point of the two realms. Otherwise, the celestial realm probably would have long since ceased existing." A thought sparked in Ling Han's mind. Then now, if the Heavenly Venerate Desolate Eternity takes another step further, he would become a second-tier Heavenly Venerate? The old geezer's vitality index was close to 16,000 points, and once he reached that, wouldn't he then become a second-tier Heavenly Venerate? Heavenly Venerate Wula shook his head. "That is impossible, but if he refined me completely, he would be able to obtain that unique power of the celestial realm, and would then be able to penetrate deeply into the celestial realm, committing mass slaughter." The strength of a realm was not based on one or two elites, but rather countless living beings. If the foreign realm wanted to devour the celestial realm, it was very simple to accomplish, and that was by eliminating a great majority of the living creatures there. In that case, the heaven and earth would be severely damaged, and would become incredibly weak, and thus easily devoured and fused. If the Heavenly Venerate Desolate Eternity was no longer restrained by the power of heaven and earth of the celestial realm, at least not so seriously would be able to commit mass slaughter. In any case, those three Heavenly Venerates of the celestial realm would not move to stop him. He alone could kill most beings of the celestial realm. By then, it would be doomsday for the celestial realm. Heavenly Venerate Wula had said that it was a very serious matter. Clearly, he had not been deliberately exaggerating. Yet Ling Han was stunned as he asked, "Senior, you wish to be refined by the Heavenly Venerate Desolate Eternity?" Heavenly Venerate Wula nodded. "In the past, I faced off against multiple enemies all on my own, shattering the connecting point of the two realms even if it meant my death. I have indeed succeeded, but I am also severely wounded, and was thus captured by the foreign realm. Desolate Eternity is one of the most powerful even among the Heavenly Venerates of the foreign realm. He has great ambitions and superior intelligence. He wants to refine me to gain the power of heaven and earth within me. If he succeeds, he will be able to cultivate the first tier to the consummate level, and will no longer fear the restrictions of the celestial realm. Ling Han nodded. Having grasped that unique power of the celestial realm, the Heavenly Venerate Desolate Eternity would be equivalent to a being of the celestial realm himself. Though a Heavenly Venerate would still be targeted by the heaven and earth, the situation would be completely different from having a foreign realm Heavenly Venerate invade. Being capable of becoming a Heavenly Venerate, which of us is not a supreme prodigy, a supreme elite? Desolate Eternity wishes to refine me, and this is a double-edged sword. It is also possible that I could turn the tables on him and refine him instead, Heavenly Venerate Wula said. But with the restraints of this realm, I can just barely preserve myself and prevent Desolate Eternity from succeeding. However, after resisting for so long, my power is already becoming weaker and weaker, and I am close to losing out. It was because Heavenly Venerate Wula had only walked the first step. After leaving the celestial realm, he was no longer able to extract that unique power, and it was certain that he would become increasingly weaker, especially when he still had to contend with an elite like Heavenly Venerate Desolate Eternity. Chapter 2365 I Am. Chapter 2365 I Am. It could be said that it was already a miracle itself that Heavenly Venerate Wula had been able to last so long. It had already been over a dozen epochs. Ling Han was incredibly impressed, and bowed towards Heavenly Venerate Wulu. Senior is virtuous and honorable. This junior is impressed. If Heavenly Venerate Wula had not made sacrifices over a dozen epochs ago, would he still have existed? To say nothing of him, even the karmic life Heavenly Venerable could not have possibly appeared, either. History would have long since been rewritten. Yet Heavenly Venerate Wuli's demeanor was solemn. I can't last for much longer, so you must return to the celestial realm at the first opportunity, and ask a ninth heaven celestial king to interfere and disturb Desolate Eternity. Adding cooperation from my side, we will definitely be able to ruin his plans. Ling Han couldn't help but grimace. This junior cannot return to the celestial realm, because an energy storm has presently filled the connecting point of the two realms. What? Heavenly Venerate Wula couldn't help but exclaim. Ling Han added some details to how he had fled from the celestial realm. Previously, he had only mentioned that he had been forced to flee, but had not described how he had fled. The Heavenly Venerate Wula could not speak. Ling Han was merely at the ascending origin tier. Even if Heavenly Venerate Desolate Eternity was caught completely off guard, Ling Han could not possibly get within 300 meters of him. He would be destroyed by the might of Heavenly Venerable Tier long before that. Could it be that this was the only outcome? He was merely a spiritual mark, and did not have any power at all. Furthermore, he had just barely extracted this spiritual mark while he was clashing with the Heavenly Venerate Desolate Eternity with his full efforts. Moreover, he could only manifest occasionally for just a short while. He just happened to catch sight of how Ling Han kidnapped the human slaves, and had thus become curious about him. He observed attentively, and when he discovered Ling Han's similar actions a second time, he took the risk to appear and test the waters. If this matter was known to the Heavenly Venerate Desolate Eternity, Heavenly Venerate Wula would definitely be suppressed even harsher, and it would not be possible any longer for him to send out a sliver of divine sense. Yet Ling Han could not return to the celestial realm, and this sliver of divine sense of Wula had no battle prowess at all. Then, weren't they completely helpless? Even if he was a Heavenly Venerate, he couldn't help but feel hopeless. Ling Han gritted his teeth. I may have a way. He decided to go all out, and use the final bit of power of the Black Tower. Otherwise, if the celestial realm was destroyed, he and the women would only be islands without roots, completely left without anyone to rely on. When he thought he had ruined the plans of Heavenly Venerate Desolate Eternity, the old geezer turned out to be using a smokescreen. He talked about how he was researching a way to make it so that beings of the foreign realm needed not fear being targeted by the power of heaven and earth of the celestial realm, but was actually only referring to himself. Once he succeeded, he would only enter the celestial realm alone, and he would definitely obtain profits that the other Heavenly Venerates wouldn't even be able to dream of. Ling Han was certain that all the Heavenly Venerates were united on the matter of invading the celestial realm, but to say that they were all close and intimate friends, Ling Han would never believe that. This was practically a humongous joke. There were greater things at stake, and Ling Han had made his decision, which could not be wavered. You! Heavenly Venerate Wu shook his head. He was not underestimating Ling Han, but what could a mere ascending origin tier do? I have a precious Heavenly Venerable tier tool, and when I activate it, I can unleash pseudo-Heavenly Venerable tier battle prowess. Ling Han revealed his trump card. Heavenly Venerate Wu couldn't help but feel surprised. You actually have such good fortune, brat? The precious tool of a Heavenly Venerate plus the Divine Demon's sword that was still at the level of a celestial tool. Who knew, they might become two precious Heavenly Venerable tier tools in the future. He began pondering, and he finally nodded after a while. This could be possible. We have to plan carefully. The senior and junior did not immediately begin, because the divine sense of the Heavenly Venerate Wu could not manifest for too long. If the Heavenly Venerate Desolate Eternity discovered that the other party still had the slightest sliver of mobility, their plans would all come to nothing. And Ling Han could not stay here too long either. The matter of great number of humans once again disappearing would be exposed soon, and he had to quickly return to his quarters. However, he now knew that the absence of these humans could not cause any problem to the Heavenly Venerate Desolate Eternity. He was only using these humans as a cover whose purpose was to conceal the existence of Heavenly Venerate Wu. When Heavenly Venerate Wu had been severely wounded, it had to be that his body just happened to be refined by Heavenly Venerate Desolate Eternity, and it was not known to the other foreign realm Heavenly Venerates. Otherwise, a Heavenly Venerate corpse would definitely be scrambled over madly by the Heavenly Venerates. Even if Heavenly Venerate Desolate Eternity was even stronger, he would only be able to obtain just that slight bit more, obtaining a leg, an arm, or something of the sort. Ling Han returned to his quarters, and did not inform the three women of this matter so that they would not worry. He only told them to make preparations as they would be leaving here at any time. Of course, there was also Wally. The knowledge that this guy possessed was really too useful. A great number of human slaves had once again disappeared. Divine Desolate Mountain naturally exploded at this. What brazen criminal actually dared to wreak havoc twice on Divine Desolate Mountain? The two ancestral kings searched high and low, and even all the disciples of the Heavenly Venerate could not escape from suspicion. They were requested to hand over their spatial god tools for inspection. However, Ling Han had the Black Tower, and as long as they were not Heavenly Venerates, no one could tell it was there. He easily passed the inspection. Now, the whole Divine Desolate Mountain had entered once more into a state of vigilance. Both ancestral kings felt vexed, and even had plans to request the return of several senior brothers at the 18th Lotus to investigate this matter. Ling Han's heart was calm. In any case, he would not be able to stay for much longer here, and once he used the great burst of the Black Tower, he would definitely kill several foreign realm monarch stars while he was at it, such as Shuige. The latter had devoured a human right in front of him, and Ling Han's killing intent blazed at this. Another dozen plus days later, the Heavenly Venerate Wu finally manifested once more, and discussed the plan with Ling Han. It was mainly him talking, and organizing the details of Ling Han's actions and where he would go after he succeeded. Ling Han planned to go to the Dark Inverse Realm because there was no way back. However, the Heavenly Venerate Wu shook his head. I am already at the end of my line, and after I escape, I will deliver you back to the Celestial Realm. Though the energy storm will cause severe injury to me, I no longer care. Senior! Ling Han was moved. Seeing Heavenly Venerate Wuli's actions, the latter planned to follow in the steps of the karmic life Heavenly Venerable, and fuse himself with Heavenly Tao to damage the connecting point of the two realms, giving more time to the Celestial Realm. No need to say further. I have decided, Heavenly Venerate Wu declared resolutely. Ling Han could only respectfully bow towards him. The Heavenly Venerates of the older generation did not just consist of selfish people like Jiuwu Heavenly Venerate and Sealed Emotion Heavenly Venerable. There were also greatly honorable and virtuous beings like Heavenly Venerate Wula and the karmic life Heavenly Venerable. Brat, you are able too. Heavenly Venerate Wula looked at Ling Han smilingly. He had a very high opinion of Ling Han, who had been able to escape into the foreign realm all alone, and still managed to live so well. How many could do the same? The two appreciated each other's talent. Though the difference in their cultivation levels was like the gap between heaven and earth, and the same applied to their age, they became firm comrades because they held the same faith. After going through all the details, Ling Han made his final preparations, and drew the three women and little terror back into the Black Tower, while also having Wally turn into an ornament that hung from his robes. He prepared to act tomorrow night. Day and night existed on Divine Desolate Mountain, but daytime lasted as long as 3 days, while night only lasted 1 night, i.e., had normal length. This was the power of a Heavenly Venerable Tir. A day passed very quickly, and Ling Han moved out. This time, he made no attempts to hide himself. Who knew what corner the sliver of divine sense of the Heavenly Venerate Desolate Eternity was roaming around now? Furthermore, his true self was presently working hard to refine the Heavenly Venerate Wulu. He was definitely paying no attention to outside matters. The rest were all mediocre, and he could suppress all of them by simply using the power of the Black Tower. Bah, what are you doing outside at such a late hour? An angry rebuke rang out, and Feng Hailuan appeared. He looked coldly at Ling Han. Could it be that you are that great thief? The latter's words were naturally his deliberate attempt to smear Ling Han's name. Ling Han grinned. That's right, I am. Chapter 2366 True Face. Chapter 2366 True Face. Feng Hailuan fat-lipped slightly. He had not expected that Ling Han would admit it. He humphed and said, This matter involves the honor of our master, yet you are still all smiles about it. You do not take the pride of the line of Desolate Eternity seriously at all. I will definitely report this to our 2 senior brothers. He did not believe that Ling Han was that great kidnapper at all, because doing that did not offer the slightest benefit for Ling Han. Ling Han rubbed his chin, and smilingly asked, Why is it that no one ever believes me when I speak the truth? All right then, how about this? He revealed his true face. Why you? Feng Hailuan's emotions fluctuated greatly. You are that human! A great many Heavenly Venerates had issued an arrest warrant for Ling Han together. This had shaken the entire foreign realm, but no matter how hard they searched high and low, they could not find Ling Han at all. But who would have imagined that this guy would be incredibly high profile, and actually scramble his way into the territory of a Heavenly Venerate? You are too outrageously bold! Feng Hailuan called out loudly. Now, he truly believed that Ling Han was that great thief behind the kidnappings. Am I? Ling Han laughed, but he was already charging towards Feng Hailuan in a single move. Boom, he shot out a fist, and it was like the mountain itself was crumbling. How could Feng Hailuan possibly dare to take this head-on? In the past, he had been no match for Ling Han, and now that Ling Han had advanced a step further, he naturally was even less of a match for him. He hurriedly released a battle cry, launching a signal for help. Ling Han moved widely and boldly, already using fists of fury. As his frightening physical power surged out, something that surpassed regulations was showing its might. Though it was just a tiny bit, it was enough to push his destructive power to a higher level. It was only a few strikes, and Feng Hailuan was already in dire straits. He had no choice but to ignite his blood essence, or he could possibly die at any time. He was stunned, furious, and afraid all at the same time. This was Divine Desolate Mountain, the place of enlightenment of a Heavenly Venerate, yet a puny human was committing a crime here. Even if Ling Han was torn to pieces, so what? This would be an eternal shame for the line of Desolate Eternity. Shio, someone was already shooting over. It was Si Huangyun. He saw how Feng Hailuan was presently battling with Ling Han, and couldn't help but be dumbfounded. How could there be a human here? Could it be this was one of those slaves previously? This was not impossible. Though his memory was extraordinarily good, what need did he have to remember the faces of these lowly slaves? Help me now! Feng Hailuan called out loudly. His wings were already wilted. In a short few inches' time, he had already aged several decades. Multiple wrinkles had already appeared on his initially clear and fair forehead. Though competition existed among the line of desolate eternity, this was now an enemy invading from outside. Si Huangyun did not dare to just stand by. Otherwise, if the matter was investigated afterwards, his crime would really be too heavy. Who is he? Si Huangyun asked in shock as he joined the battle. How could an indescribably powerful human appear here? Bah! Feng Hailuan said through gritted teeth. What? Si Huangyun was greatly shocked. This guy was really outrageously bold. As a mere human, he actually dared to come and become a disciple at the place of enlightenment of a Heavenly Venerate. And what was more important, he actually managed to deceive a Heavenly Venerate, though the latter was only a sliver of divine sense. What? This trash is Ba? An elite arrived. This time, it was Shuige. He looked at Ling Han, the killing intent in his eyes blazing. He finally understood why Ling Han had slapped him in the face repeatedly for no reason. As it turned out, he was human, so he naturally could not bear to see him devour his fellow men. Ha ha! He suddenly laughed loudly, filled with cruelty. It was great now. He could get his revenge to his heart's content. I will devour your brain tissue. This man's name is Ling Han, the person that various Heavenly Venerates are hunting down. Zhi Shuang appeared, with her eyes sweeping over Ling Han, filled with surprise. Initially, she had wanted to form an alliance with Ling Han, and now that she had seen Ling Han reveal his real face, she was naturally exploding with shock. When these worlds fell, both Si Huangyun and Shuige frowned. They had not anticipated that Ling Han would be so strong that a considerable number of Heavenly Venerates had kept him in mind. Capture him to wipe off the shame of our line of desolate eternity. Shuige shouted loudly, joining the battle as well. Ling Han grinned, but his eyes were menacing as he asked, All of you have come to your deaths? You are only a human. Shuige smirked coldly. He burst out with the power unique to his race. A boundless bloody light spread out, and regulations of darkness extended, filled with the reek of slaughter and bloodshed. Invincible exploding clouds. Si Huangyun also shouted loudly, using a great burst of power. Feng Hailuan did not use any bursts of power, though. He was already burning even his blood essence, and had long since reached his limits. Ling Han smirked coldly, and waved his right hand. The divine demon sword was summoned, its cold light dazzling the heavens. He was too strong now, and added with a celestial tool like the divine demon sword, he was naturally invincible. Pu Shuige was the first to suffer, being cleaved in two by the divine demon's sword. This was because Ling Han was targeting him specifically, seeing him as the first target that had to be killed. Shuige screamed in pain. He attempted to reconnect the two halves of his body, but with how overbearing the divine demon sword was, it was useless even if the ripped halves of his body were pulled together. He could not fuse them back together again. Not only was that the case, he was still continuously losing blood. This bleeding would not kill a 9th Lotus Elite, but losing too much would still cause great damage to his strength, and his cultivation level could even regress. Ling Han attacked aggressively, wanting to follow up with a few more strikes, and completely kill this damn insect. How dare you! Zhi Shuang released a battle cry, and joined the battle as well. At this time, more people were rushing here. Huai Jian, Su Xing, Jing Zhongyue, and the others were naturally all astounded when they found out that this human was Ba, and when they knew that he was the man that the Heavenly Venerates were hunting down, they were naturally even more astonished. Ling Han's right hand wielded the sword, while his left hand was curled into a fist. As the divine sword swept out, there was no one that could match it at all, and Fists of Fury was also filled with dominance. Even Zhi Shuang did not dare face it directly, and they could only block it with the combined efforts of 2 or 3 people. Die. Jing Zhongyue and Huai Jian both joined the battle. There was no way that they could allow Ling Han to kill anyone. Finally, Ancestral King Nawa appeared as well. His eyes swept over them, and a rip was immediately torn in the air, as if the heaven itself was about to collapse. Ancestral kings were too strong, being equal with regulations themselves. As long as you used regulations, there was no possible way that you could match an ancestral king. This was an overwhelming level of strength. Surrender. Ancestral King Nawa moved, grabbing out at Ling Han. Small tower. Ling Han called out mentally. Immediately, an indescribable power surged out within Ling Han's body. Then, the heaven and earth immediately paled, with thunderclouds spreading out densely, as if a supreme great tribulation was about to descend. This was because the Black Tower had shown its might. This was a power that belonged to the celestial realm, and was not recognized by this realm. Pun! Ling Han directly sent out a palm strike, and ancestral King Nawa was instantly smacked flat. When he raised his hand again, this powerful being had already become a mess of flesh and blood. This was an ancestral king. Yet Ling Han did not even cast a second look at him. The Black Tower's power was limited. He had to finish what he came to do as soon as possible. Pun pun pun. He did not deliberately target anyone, but Shui Gu directly exploded under his crushing aura, both form and spirit obliterated. With the surge of might from the Black Tower, Ling Han could possess pseudo-heavenly venerable tier strength. Even the majority of Ninth Heaven celestial kings could not survive 10 moves from him, what more a mere Ninth Lotus, especially when the latter was already severely injured at that. Everyone was stunned. An ancestral king and a monarch star had actually already died in Ling Han's hands in the blink of an eye, and they couldn't even manage to react in time. No wonder the Heavenly Venerates had issued an arrest warrant for Ling Han together. Chapter 2367, Clashing with the Heavenly Venerate. Chapter 2367, Clashing with the Heavenly Venerate. Ling Han did not linger in battle. He merely casually shot out a punch, and Huai Jian and the others instantly exploded like flowers being scattered. Under his might, they could not even last a single blow. Most people directly exploded into flesh and blood, but Huai Jian and Jing Zhongyue were spared. A light flickered on them, and it blocked the attack from Ling Han. The power of the Heavenly Venerate Desolate Eternity, Ling Han thought immediately. That elite was really prejudiced, having given additional help and care to Huai Jian and Jing Zhongyue. He did not follow up with another blow, but rather shot forwards onto the mountain. With his speed, he instantly threw Jing Zhongyue and Huai Jian off his tail, charging into the mountains. Ancestral King Zhi Kong immediately awoke. He had sensed a terrifying killing intent had already locked down on him, but he had just opened his eyes when a cold flash had already struck down on him, splitting him in two. The left and right side of his body slipped down to the sides, and he died just like that. Hong long long, lightning flashed in the skies, turning into multiple giants that descended, launching a barrage of blasts at Ling Han, and the heaven and earth grieved as well, lamenting the death of an ancestral king. Ling Han took a deep breath, and concentrated his power entirely on the divine demon's sword. The frightening power of Heavenly Venerable Tear caused even the blade to tremble, as if it could shatter at any moment. He shouted loudly, and delivered a sword strike. Pun! The whole divine desolate mountain shuddered strongly, dust and dirt flying, and turning into a massive mushroom cloud, and if one could come into the center of the mountains, they would see that the whole mountain peak had been leveled. A frightening divine sense spread out, filled with age and experience. It was like a wild beast that had gone through endless years had awoken, filled with fury, and planning to destroy the heavens and earth. Heavenly Venerate Desolate Eternity. The commotion was too great, awakening him from his secluded state. As he had been refining the Heavenly Venerate Wu all these epochs, this disturbance had incredibly strong effects on him. Thus, he was incredibly furious. Who would dare to disturb him? You! The Heavenly Venerate Desolate Eternity stretched out a hand, and the dust and dirt that filled the skies were instantly swept aside. He stood proudly like the overlord of a realm, exuding an aura that even the heaven and earth seemed to be trembling at. Ling Han understood. It was not the heaven and earth that was fearing him, but rather regulations. His vitality index was close to 16,000 points. This guy's strength was already so high that it was close to the level of second-tier Heavenly Venerate. A mere piece of trash of the human race, just because you have a mighty precious tool, you dare to commit insolence in front of me. Heavenly Venerate Desolate Eternity smirked coldly. Boom, the power of heaven and earth rippled. Regulations were not allowed to exist at all, and split apart consequently. This blow could destroy worlds. Ling Han roared loudly, and faced it with his full efforts. Pun! With this blow, he was directly sent flying tens of thousands of miles away. The gap between them was too wide. How could a pseudo-Heavenly Venerate face a real Heavenly Venerate? What more when the Heavenly Venerate Desolate Eternity was one of the strongest on this level at that? Perhaps he was even the strongest Heavenly Venerate. But Ling Han charged back without the slightest hesitation. The divine demon sword danced, unafraid of even a Heavenly Venerate. You are courting death! The Heavenly Venerate Desolate Eternity was outraged, and once more stretched out his hand to strike Ling Han down. Pung, pung, pung. With every strike, Ling Han was undoubtedly sent flying. The gap in strength between them was really too wide, but he would immediately charge back every time like he was a monster that could not be killed. Finally, Heavenly Venerate Desolate Eternity was truly angered. He had left behind a portion of his power to suppress the Heavenly Venerate Wu-Le all this while, and that was why he had not been able to unleash his true power. But now he could not accept that he had not been able to kill a mere minor character in Ninth Lotus after such a long time. Boom, he sent out another palm strike, and his might instantly soared 100 or even 1,000 times over, terrifying to the extreme. This time, he was truly attacking with his full power. Even the heaven and earth would be wary of such strong power, and a part of the heavenly tribulation instantly blasted at the Heavenly Venerate Desolate Eternity. He was too powerful, and could not exist in this realm. Pun! Without the slightest doubt, Ling Han exploded into a shower of blood. Then, a flame ignited. He was presently reforming, and healing himself rapidly. Rising from the ashes. Initially, Ling Han could not use rising from the ashes after entering the foreign realm, because regulations differed, but the Black Tower was showing its might this time, which was equivalent to having created a small realm of the celestial realm. In this zone, Ling Han could use all the regulations of the celestial realm. Overestimating yourself! The Heavenly Venerate Desolate Eternity smirked coldly. So what if you rose from the ashes again? He only had to follow up with another strike, and could still send Ling Han on to his next life. Boom, he struck out with a palm, not giving Ling Han any chance to resurrect himself. Pung! Right at this crucial moment, his palm was actually blocked. What? Even Heavenly Venerate Desolate Eternity revealed an expression of disbelief. This was something that he had completely failed to predict. Ha 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 ha, Desolate Eternity, never thought that I would still be able to battle, right? The laughter of Heavenly Venerate Wu-Le rang out. His figure had appeared as well, turning into the image of a middle-aged man in his 30s. He was handsome, generous, and incomparable in his charisma. So, this brat wanted to draw me into attacking with full power so as to create a chance for you to escape. Heavenly Venerate Desolate Eternity immediately understood. Instantly, flames were gushing from his nostrils, stronger than even the origin flame of the heaven and earth. He was almost dying from fury. Now that Heavenly Venerate Wu-Le had escaped, it meant that his efforts for the last over dozen epochs would be wasted. That's right! Heavenly Venerate Wu-Le declared proudly, his eyes sweeping over Ling Han, and holding a hint of gentleness. This was the doting love an elder felt for a junior. So what about it? I managed to suppress you once, so I will definitely be able to suppress you a second time, or a third time. Heavenly Venerate Desolate Eternity smirked coldly, but though his words were confident, all his efforts had come to naught this time, and who knew how many more epochs he would have to go through to finally refine the Heavenly Venerate Wu-Le. Naturally, he was furious to the extreme at this. Desolate Eternity, we will fight again next time. Heavenly Venerate Wu-Le laughed loudly, and stretched out a hand, grabbing the newly revived Ling Han. Then, taking a step, he was instantly millions and millions of miles away. Furthermore, before he left, he did not forget to deliver a last attack, filled with the fury that had accumulated from him, almost being refined. Boom! Heavenly Venerate Divine Desolate Mountain had no choice but to parry this attack, but merely the rippling of several slivers of power almost raised the whole Divine Desolate Mountain into the ground, and who knew how many people had become a mush of blood and flesh. This was the strike of a Heavenly Venerate, the power that surpassed regulations. Damn it! Heavenly Venerate Desolate Eternity roared in fury, and set off in hot pursuit of Heavenly Venerate Wula. He was determined to capture both Heavenly Venerate Wula and Ling Han, and subject them to the cruelest of punishments. Heavenly Venerate Wula did not linger in battle at all, and directly aimed for the connecting point of the two realms. With how fast the speed of a Heavenly Venerate was, they could appear at any corner with a mere thought. Though this was only the manifestation of divine sense, which was faster than their physical body, in truth, their physical speed was not much worse either. In merely half an hour, the connecting point of the two realms was already within sight. In this place, the storm of energy had taken the form of a colossal waterfall that descended from the heavens, preventing anyone from leaving or entering. Even a Heavenly Venerate would be severely wounded should they attempt to barge in by force, and added with how they would be targeted by the heaven and earth, there was a 99% chance that they would die. Heavenly Venerate Desolate Eternity was already close to approaching. He couldn't help but smirk coldly. Could it be that they had come here planning to barge into the storm of energy? Desolate Eternity, no need for the send-off. Your life will be up to this brat to take in future. Heavenly Venerate Wula laughed loudly, charging over into the energy storm without the slightest hesitation. No! Heavenly Venerate Wula screamed in fury. Though his strength had greatly improved in these more than dozen epochs, he had still not reached the pinnacle of the first-tier Heavenly Venerate. As he saw it, Heavenly Venerate Wula was actually a Heavenly Venerable Tier Great Herb for him. He stretched out his hand to grab him, gushing with his full power. The ground in the surrounding area, stretching as far as hundreds of thousands of miles, was completely destroyed. Who knew how many beings of the foreign realm had been implicated and died? You're tuning into the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.